Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere very different. Not castles, not kings, not stone streets filled with fleas, but a place that defined an entire generation and reshaped modern history. We're going to the Mekong Delta during the Vietnam War. A place of mud, monsoon rains, rice paddies, and jungles so dense you could lose yourself in 10 steps. It's not the heroic version of war that Hollywood has burned into your memory. There's no soaring music, no neat uniforms, no dramatic speeches before battle. The reality is far messier, far louder, and far more exhausting. Most people wouldn't last a single day there. So before we begin, take a second to get comfortable. Maybe dim the lights, maybe put on a fan for that low, steady hum. This is going to be a slow journey through the sights, sounds and discomforts of a world that feels both recent and impossibly far away. Imagine you've just been dropped into the Mekong Delta sometime in 1967. The good news is that you've made it through the night. The bad news is that you're already soaked in sweat before the sun has fully risen. Your bed is nothing more than a damp hammock strung between two poles, and it's swaying gently. Not because you're relaxed, but because the ground beneath you is alive with mud, insects, and the constant movement of water. You're about to discover what daily life meant for thousands of young soldiers who had to navigate this place, not for an afternoon, not for a week, but for months on end. Forget whatever ideas of clean barracks or orderly bases you might have. Forget the image of soldiers marching in crisp lines. Out here, the war is as much against the environment as it is against any enemy. The jungle doesn't care about sides, the rice paddies don't care about politics, and the weather doesn't stop because someone blew a whistle. Everything in this place conspires against you. And that's where we'll begin tonight. You're waking up in the Mekong Delta, in the middle of a war you didn't start, in a land that doesn't belong to you, and in conditions you probably wouldn't survive for long. You open your eyes to a sound you can't quite place at first. It isn't an alarm clock, or even a bell. It's a mix of buzzing, dripping, and the faint hum of engines far off down the river. That's what counts as morning here. The air is already wet enough that your skin feels slick before you've even moved. Your hammock creaks as you shift, a damp strip of fabric strung between two poles that may or may not hold. It's sticky, it smells of mildew, and there's a faint sour odour clinging to the fabric because it's been rained on more times than you can count. The idea of clean sheets or even a dry blanket doesn't exist out here. Everything is damp, even when it looks dry, because the Mekong never lets go of its moisture. Your eyes adjust slowly, but there isn't much to see. The jungle blocks the sun at this hour, so the light that filters through is a dull green-grey. Around you, the ground is mud mixed with rice paddy water, streaked with footprints that filled up overnight. Mosquitoes hover in lazy clouds, drifting toward you like they've been waiting for you to wake up. You try to swat them, but it doesn't matter. They're everywhere. In your ears, on your neck, under your shirt. You've been told to use repellent, but the moment you sweat, it runs off. And you've been sweating since before you opened your eyes. The sound of dripping water doesn't stop. Every leaf around you is shedding the rain that fell during the night. It patters on your gear, on your boots, on the dirt that never dries. Even when it isn't raining, it feels like it is. Your clothes from yesterday are still wet. You hung them on a line, but they're wetter now than when you took them off, soaked through by the night air. You know you'll have to put them back on soon, because there's no fresh set waiting for you. You brought what you could carry, and what you could carry is already ruined by the jungle. You look around and see others stirring. Hammocks sag under the weight of men who didn't sleep so much as drift in and out of shallow, restless dozing. Sleep here isn't real. The jungle doesn't let it be real. There are always sounds. Frogs croaking loud enough to rattle your teeth. Insects clicking and whining like static. The occasional bark of a distant dog in a village you're not supposed to approach. And the sudden crack of gunfire that might just be someone testing a weapon, or might be something else. Your body never lets go completely. Even in your half sleep, you're ready to jerk awake at the snap of a twig. The air tastes heavy. Diesel fumes drift from the river, carried by the faint morning breeze. Somewhere nearby, a patrol boat is idling, and the smell seeps through the trees. Mixed with that is the smoke from last night's cooking fires, the tang of mud, and the faint rot of vegetation that never finishes decomposing because the ground is always wet. You breathe it in because you have no choice. It coats your tongue, it seeps into your clothes, it sticks to your hair. You shift your feet, and the first thing you notice is that they hurt. They always hurt. You fell asleep with them damp, and now they're swollen and soft. Skin pruned from never drying. The corpseman warned you about jungle rot. Change your socks, keep your feet dry, air them out. Nice advice, except the jungle doesn't care. You could change your socks 3 times a day and still end up with skin peeling off in strips. You push your foot deeper into the hammock just to avoid letting it touch the ground. But you know soon enough you'll have to step into the mud, and the mud never gives you a break. A mosquito whines close to your ear, and you slap at it, smearing blood that might not even be yours. They're fat from feeding on everyone else too. You remember the malaria pills you're supposed to take, the bitter, chalky tablets that taste worse than the water you swallow them with. You choke them down because the alternative is days of fever that blur into weeks. Your body cooking itself from the inside out while you lie useless in the mud. You know the pills aren't perfect. Some guys still get sick, but you take them anyway because there's nothing else. Someone coughs nearby. It's a wet, hacking sound that never really stops. Out here, everyone coughs. The air is too thick, the damp too constant, the smoke too choking. It's not just colds, it's infections, mould growing in lungs, bronchitis that doesn't go away. There's no clean air. There's just thick air. You listen to the cough echo through the trees, mixing with the buzz of cicadas that rise and fall like waves. The jungle isn't quiet. It's never quiet. Silence would be more frightening than noise. You sit up slowly and your back aches. Sleeping curled in a hammock does that to you. It feels like someone's been prying your spine apart with a crowbar. You reach for your canteen, and the water inside tastes faintly of iodine, a chemical tang meant to make it safe. You drink anyway, because your mouth is dry and your body is already sweating out more than it can replace. The canteen itself smells of metal and mildew, like everything else. You take another swallow, then force yourself to stop, because you don't know when you'll get to refill it. Your uniform hangs limp over a branch. It's the same jungle fatigues you've been wearing for weeks. Olive drab, heavy cotton, never fully dry. The fabric is stiff with salt from your sweat, stained with mud that never washed out, fraying at the seams where the constant wet has eaten through. You eye it like it's your enemy, because in some ways it is. Putting it back on means wrapping yourself in damp misery, but you don't have a choice. The morning humidity is climbing already. Sweat beads on your forehead just from sitting still. It rolls down your neck, soaking into the collar of the shirt you haven't even put on yet. You wipe your face, but it doesn't matter. The sweat comes back instantly. You can feel your hair plastering to your scalp, itchy and damp. There's no relief coming, not until nightfall, and even then, it's more about damp coolness than actual comfort. You hear a thud nearby, someone dropping their boots onto the ground. The boots make a sucking sound as they hit the mud, already half sinking. Leather that's stiff with water, soles worn thin from endless marches through fields that swallow every step. You know yours aren't any better. They smell of mildew, the insides lined with damp socks that never dried overnight. Putting them on is like shoving your feet into cold sponges, but you do it anyway because bare feet mean cuts, leeches, infections, and worse. The sky above the canopy is turning a dull white, the sign of another day starting. You can't see the sun directly, but you can feel its weight in the air, pressing down already. A bird shrieks in the distance, an eerie call that echoes through the trees. Someone mutters a curse nearby as they pull on their gear. You do the same, reaching for your pack, heavy with ammo, rations, and equipment that's already soaked through. Every strap digs into your shoulders. Every buckle clinks softly in the still damp air. The mud below waits for you, thick, sucking, alive with worms and insects. You know you'll step into it soon, and it will cling to you, pulling at your boots, weighing you down, turning every stride into work. The mosquitoes don't wait for you to move. They land on your hands, your neck, your eyelids. You slap at them again, but it's pointless. They're already winning. You remember the netting you strung up last night, the thin mesh that's supposed to keep them out. They found a way in anyway. They always do. You breathe in, and it feels like the air itself is pressing into your lungs, hot and wet. You know this is just the beginning of the day. You haven't moved yet, haven't marched, haven't sweated through your clothes, haven't waded through the paddies. All you've done is wake up, and already your body feels drained. You look at the ground again, at the puddles rippling with insect movement, at the frogs croaking like they own the place. Somewhere nearby, you hear the faint slosh of oars on the river, villagers starting their day, moving silently in boats that glide between reeds. The line between civilian and enemy is invisible. You're reminded of it every time someone glances at you too long, every time a child stares with blank eyes, every time a farmer doesn't look up from his field. You're reminded that you're not just fighting the mud and the bugs and the heat. You're fighting suspicion, shadows, and things that don't show themselves until it's too late. You sit there for a moment longer, swatting mosquitoes, listening to the jungle waking around you. You're awake now, though you don't feel rested. You know this day will drag you further into the swamp, into the rice paddies, into the endless heat. And all you did was open your eyes. You don't really remember falling asleep last night, because sleep out here is never something that arrives cleanly. It comes in pieces like broken glass. You close your eyes and for a moment you might drift, but then a mosquito whines against your ear, or a frog croaks so loudly it sounds like it's right beside you, and your body jerks back awake. The hammock beneath you swings slightly, and you grip the edge because the thought of rolling out into the muck below is worse than the lack of rest. That hammock is all you have between yourself and the ground is alive with things that bite, crawl, and burrow. It's a standard issue jungle hammock, the kind that looks fine when strung between two trees in a photograph, but out here it's just another damp trap. The fabric is supposed to be waterproof, but nothing is waterproof in the Delta. It holds moisture the way a sponge does. The smell clings to it, mildew, sweat, the faint trace of insect repellent that doesn't fool anything with wings. You tried to hang it high, pulling the ropes tight between two poles, but no matter how high you think you've tied it, you still feel the night creatures brushing below, scuttling over mud, rustling in the grass. The netting overhead is supposed to protect you. You tuck it carefully under your body when you lie down, trying to seal every edge, but mosquitoes slip through anyway, squeezing in through gaps you can't even see. They hover inside with you, whining endlessly, reminding you that there's no real barrier between your skin and the jungle. You slap at them, smear them against the net, but more take their place. You've already got a dozen bites swelling on your arms, itching with the kind of deep irritation that makes you want to claw the skin off. Your body shifts and the hammock groans. The ropes dig into the poles, creaking with every small movement. You've seen them snap before. 1 second a guy is dozing, the next he's sprawled in the mud, face pressed into something you hope isn't a rat's nest. You think about that every time you shift your weight. You don't trust the ropes, you don't trust the knots, you don't trust the trees themselves, which sometimes rot from the inside out and topple without warning. Out here, even your bed can betray you. The ground below is never truly still. You can hear it moving in the dark. Frogs splash in puddles, crabs scuttle sideways, and sometimes the unmistakable slither of a snake cuts through the silence. The first time you heard that sound, your whole body went rigid, waiting for the strike that never came. Now you know it's common, and that doesn't make it better. The idea of falling asleep inches above something venomous keeps your nerves buzzing long after your eyes start to close. Heat builds under the netting. Your body sweats into the hammock, and the moisture never dries. You flip from one side to the other, but there's no cool surface, just damp fabric that clings to your skin. The shirt you fell asleep in is plastered to your back, and the waistband of your trousers has cut into your stomach all night, rubbing raw. You think about taking them off, but then you think about leeches, mosquitoes, ants, and everything else waiting for bare skin. So you keep them on and itch through the hours, your body both hot and exposed, even under the layers. You try to keep still, because movement draws more insects. Ants crawl across the ropes and onto the edges of the hammock. They bite without hesitation, leaving welts that sting for hours. At some point you feel something small run across your ankle. You kick hard, but the thing is already gone, and now you're wide awake again, heart hammering, straining to hear in the darkness. The jungle gives nothing back except its constant chorus. Buzzing, croaking, clicking, distant splashes. Every sound could be harmless, or it could mean something else entirely. You never know. The worst part is the rain. Sometimes it starts without warning. Fat drops drumming against the canopy, breaking through leaves, splattering across your gear. The netting sags under the weight, pressing against your face, dripping water straight into your eyes. You shift and try to brush it away, but the hammock tilts dangerously, and for a moment you feel certain you're going to roll out completely. You lie there, half soaked, wishing for dryness that doesn't exist. The rain ends as suddenly as it began, leaving everything wetter than before, and the smell of rotting vegetation intensifies until it's all you can taste. Your ears strain through the night for other sounds. Sometimes it's just the jungle, but sometimes it's not. The muffled splash of a paddle on the river, too steady to be an animal. The crack of a twig where no one should be walking. The low murmur of voices carried by the humid air. Every noise feels like a warning. You want to rest, but your brain doesn't let you. Even in your shallow doze, your body is coiled tight, ready to jerk awake with the snap of gunfire. That constant readiness is exhausting, but it never turns off. The men around you don't sleep much either. You can hear them tossing, hear hammocks creaking, hear muttered curses in the dark. Someone groans quietly, caught in a nightmare, or maybe just in pain from a body that hasn't felt comfortable in months. Sleep isn't communal, but misery is. You feel it around you like a fog, heavy and unspoken. Everyone is exhausted, and everyone knows exhaustion is just another thing that can kill you out here. Your back aches, your neck aches. The hammock doesn't support you so much as bend you into a shape your body was never meant to hold. By the time you wake, your joints crack, your muscles twitch, and your spine feels like it's been grinding against stone. You know you'll carry that pain through the day, and it will only get worse after hours of slogging through paddies. The hammock was supposed to make things easier, but it's just one more thing that wears you down, piece by piece, night after night. The smell builds around you as the hours drag. Sweat that never dried, mud that caked to your boots, smoke from last night's cooking, mildew climbing through fabric, insect repellent half washed away, all blending into a stink that sticks to everything. You get used to it, but only in the sense that you stop noticing until someone shifts and the air stirs, and the smell hits fresh again. There's no such thing as clean here, just degrees of dirty. When dawn starts to creep in, you realise you haven't really rested. Your eyes burned all night from sweat dripping into them. Your ears rang with the chorus of bugs and frogs, and your nerves fired every time a twig snapped outside the perimeter. You might have drifted in and out, but real sleep never came. And yet, you have to rise, pull yourself out of the hammock, and face another day. You untuck the netting, swing your legs over the edge, and your boots find the mud. The hammock sags behind you, dripping faintly, already starting to smell worse as the morning heat builds. You'll have to pack it, carry it, and set it up again tonight, knowing it won't be any drier, any cleaner, or any more restful. That's the routine. You sleep in filth, wake in filth, and march back into filth, carrying everything with you. The first thing that hits you when you step out of the hammock isn't the sight of the jungle or the sound of it, it's the smell. It never gives you a gentle introduction. It slams into you, thick and layered, the kind of smell that doesn't just sit in your nose, but crawls down into your throat and clings to your skin. You breathe it in because you have no choice, and within seconds it feels like it's inside you, like you've swallowed the Delta whole. The damp is always the bass note. The earth never dries, the trees never stop dripping, and everything that falls to the ground rots faster than you can imagine. Leaves, branches, even animals that don't make it through the night, they all break down into a wet, pungent decay that soaks the mud. It's not just one smell, it's layers of it. From sweet, sickly sour fruit fermenting in the underbrush to the acrid bite of mould chewing through canvas. You step into it. and the air wraps around you like a wet blanket someone forgot in the wash for a month. Mixed in with that is the smoke. It lingers from last night's cooking fires, drifting low across the water, hanging beneath the canopy. It's not campfire smoke from clean wood, it's smoke from damp fuel, half-rotted sticks, bits of trash, whatever can be burned. It has a greasy thickness to it that coats your tongue, makes your eyes sting, and clings to your clothes long after the flames are out. When the breeze shifts, you get another wave of it, and for a second you're reminded of how far from fresh air you really are. Then there's the diesel, always the diesel. The river is never far, and the river is always alive with boats. Patrol craft, supply barges, ferries, sampans. Engines run constantly, belching out fumes that settle over the delta like another layer of humidity. The smell is sharp and oily, heavy with the promise of burning fuel. Sometimes it's faint, just a background note you almost forget about. Other times it's so strong you feel like you're breathing in liquid. Your chest tightens, your stomach turns, but you keep inhaling because you can't not. There's nowhere to escape it. All of it mixes together in a cocktail that's unique to this place. Smoke, rot, fuel, damp. Some mornings there's the added sharpness of human waste, carried from villages or seeping into the fields. Other times it's the sour reek of stagnant water, green with algae, bubbling faintly as it swallows another branch or carcass. You can't tell where one smell ends and the next begins. It's all just there, pressing in on you, coating your mouth with a taste you can't spit out. Your gear has absorbed it too. The canvas of your pack reeks of mildew. Your fatigues stink of sweat and wet fabric. Your boots smell like a swamp you've been dragging with you. Even when you try to hold your breath, the stench seeps in from your own clothes, reminding you that you're part of the environment now. It doesn't matter how many times you try to air things out, it never changes. Out here, clean isn't a concept. It's just varying shades of dirty. The breeze carries other notes with it. A faint hint of fish from the river, sharp and metallic, mixed with the briny smell of drying nets. The sweet, cloying stink of overripe fruit, mangoes or bananas splitting open in the heat, attracting clouds of flies. The acrid bite of burning garbage from a distant village where plastic and food scraps smoulder together into a smoke that makes your throat close. Sometimes, if the wind is just right, you catch a whiff of gunpowder, faint but unmistakable, reminding you that the war isn't somewhere else. It's here, even in the air you breathe. The smell gets into your head as much as your body. It makes eating difficult, drinking water unpleasant, even resting impossible. You can't block it out. You can't escape it. Every time you think you've grown used to it, something shifts. The wind, the rain, the smoke, and it hits you fresh, stronger, sharper, like starting all over again. You rub at your nose, but it doesn't matter. The air is in you whether you want it or not. When the sun begins to rise higher, the smells change again. The damp rot gets stronger as the heat wakes it up. The smoke grows thinner, but sourer, mixed with the morning's diesel as boats start moving in earnest. The sweat on your skin blends with everything else until you can't tell if it's you that stinks or the jungle itself. It's both. It's everything. You glance at the men around you, and you know they smell the same. No one mentions it. There's no point. You all reek of sweat, mildew, and smoke. You all carry the same layer of stink that never washes off. It's in your hair, in your pores, in your breath. When you cough, the taste of it comes up with the phlegm. thick and bitter. When you spit, it clings to your tongue. The smell isn't just unpleasant. It's constant, relentless. It seeps into your memory until it feels like it's the only thing you'll take home, the only proof you were here. You tell yourself you'll get used to it, but that's a lie. Your body never stops noticing. Your brain never stops reacting. You live in it day after day, and every morning when you wake, it greets you like an enemy you can't fight. Out here, hygiene is less about staying clean and more about trying not to rot alive. The idea of feeling fresh, of taking a proper shower, of sliding into clean clothes after a long day, it doesn't exist. The Mekong doesn't give you breaks. It gives you sweat, mud, and bacteria that seem to multiply faster than you can scrape them off. Every inch of your body feels under siege, and the best you can do is slow the advance. You've been told to wash whenever you can, but the only water available is the same brown, sluggish soup you're marching through. Rivers and canals stretch in every direction, but dipping into them feels less like bathing and more like marinating yourself in disease. The surface looks calm, maybe even inviting if you're desperate, but just beneath is a stew of parasites, animal waste, rotting vegetation, and sometimes worse. The corpsman warned you about what lurks there. Schistosomiasis, hookworm, bacteria that slip in through the smallest cut. You look at the water, and you know stepping in means rolling the dice with your health. But you do it anyway, because after days of sweat and mud, the filth clinging to you feels unbearable. So you wade in, boots and all, because taking them off just invites leeches to clamp onto your feet. The water is warm, almost hot, with no relief in it. It smells like mud and algae, and when you scoop some up to splash across your chest, it leaves a greasy film behind instead of rinsing anything off. You scrub at your arms, trying to scrape away the salt crusted from your sweat, but the more you rub, the more it feels like the muck just grinds deeper into your pores. When you climb back out, you don't feel cleaner. You feel coated, slimy, heavier. If you're lucky enough to be near a base, you might get a shower. Not the kind you picture. No tiled stalls, no running hot water, no clean towels waiting. Out here, a shower is usually a barrel propped up on a wooden frame, filled with rainwater if it's being collected, or pumped in from the same murky sources you're trying to avoid. There's a pipe, sometimes just a punched hole in the barrel, and you pull a cord to release a thin stream. The water splashes down in short bursts, often cold, sometimes lukewarm if the sun has baked the barrel long enough. You stand under it, soap in one hand, trying to scrub yourself before it runs out. The soap is harsh, military issue, the kind that strips oil but leaves your skin raw. You lather up, rub until your arms sting, and rinse as fast as you can. The water is never enough, and halfway through you're left with patches of soap scum still clinging to you. You towel off with whatever rag you've got, but it's already damp from yesterday, already stinking of mildew. By the time you pull your uniform back on, you're sweating again, undoing everything you just tried to fix. Within an hour, you smell like you never bathed at all. Shaving is its own kind of torment. You're expected to keep your face clear, even out here, where a razor feels more like a punishment than a tool. You crouch over a canteen cup filled with water, rusty from the metal, lukewarm at best. You splash some on your face, rub at your stubble, and drag the blade across your skin. The razor tugs and bites, leaving raw patches and tiny cuts that sting when sweat runs into them. You dab at your neck, but there's no antiseptic, no balm, nothing to stop the irritation. Within hours the nicks fester, little red bumps swelling under the constant film of dirt and grime. You scratch at them until they scab, then scratch again when they itch worse. Your boots are the real enemy. They're supposed to be built for the jungle, but nothing is built for this. Every step soaks them through. The leather grows soft, then stiff, then begins to rot from the inside. You pull them off at night, and the smell hits you like a wall. Sour, fungal, a mix of swamp water and decaying skin. Your socks are worse, stiff with dried sweat, damp no matter how long you hang them. You try to rotate pairs, but they're all the same. When you peel them off, your feet are pale and wrinkled, the skin soft enough to rub away with a thumb. Corpsemen warn you constantly about trench foot, about fungus that eats between your toes until they split, about infections that start small and end with amputations. So you sit there, rubbing your feet with whatever powder you've been issued, the white dust caking between your toes, mixing with sweat until it clumps. You let them dry in the air as long as you can, but the jungle doesn't give you long. Soon enough, you're lacing up again, shoving your damp socks back into damp boots, and stepping into another stretch of mud. Within minutes, they're soaked through, and the cycle begins again. Your skin doesn't fare any better. The humidity means you're always wet, and constant friction rubs raw spots into blisters. The sweat stings in every crease, under your arms, around your waist, between your thighs. You develop rashes that burn, patches of skin that peel away in strips, welts that itch so bad you tear them open scratching. There's no ointment, no lotion, nothing to soothe it. The courseman might hand out a tin of something when it gets bad, but mostly you're left to endure. Then there are the leeches. You don't see them until they've already latched on. Tiny black worms, waiting in the grass or drifting in the water, finding any bit of exposed skin. They swell as they feed, their bodies bloating with your blood. You feel a tug, look down, and there it is, attached to your ankle or your calf. You pry it off, but it leaves behind a wound that won't clot, bleeding steadily, seeping into your sock. The more you march, the more the wound opens, until your boot squelches with every step. You check again later, and there's another leech, or maybe two, clinging just where you can't see. It becomes routine, peeling them off, watching the blood drip, moving on. Your hands suffer too. You're always carrying something, rifle, pack, ammo cans, and the constant moisture softens your palms until the skin splits. Blisters burst and refuse to heal, the raw flesh turning white and swollen. You wipe them on your trousers, but the mud seeps in anyway, filling the cuts with grit. Infection is never far behind. Fingers swell, nails darken, pus seeps when you press. You wrap them in cloth, but the cloth soaks through instantly. Everything festers here, and the best you can hope for is that it doesn't spread faster than your body can fight it. Your scalp itches constantly. Sweat mats your hair, mud cakes into it, and bugs find their way in. You scratch until your nails come away with flakes of skin, until your scalp burns. Showers don't help. The water trickles over you, but it never clears the grime completely. Lice thrive even here, buried under your hair, biting at your scalp until sleep becomes impossible. You think about shaving your head, but even then, the itching wouldn't stop. It never does. Teeth aren't spared either. Brushing is something you do when you can, but out here, the toothbrush itself becomes foul. The bristles turn black with mould from sitting damp in your kit. The paste runs out, and soon enough you're just scraping out your teeth with a twig or rinsing with whatever water you have left. Your gums swell and bleed. Your teeth ache constantly from grit ground into them. Some men carry tins of tobacco, chewing to distract themselves from the pain, spitting black juice into the mud. It doesn't help much. Nothing does. Every part of you is breaking down slowly, steadily. Hygiene isn't a routine here. It's damage control. Like you're not staying clean. You're just trying to slow the rot, to keep your body from collapsing completely under the assault. You scrub when you can, rinse when you can, powder when you can, but none of it ever feels like enough. By the end of each day, you stink worse than when you started. By the end of the week, your skin feels like it belongs to someone else. By the end of the month, you forget what clean even means. And still, you do it. You dunk yourself in muddy water. You scrape at your face with a dull razor. You powder your feet and wrap your sores, because the alternative is worse. You've seen what happens when someone stops trying. The infection spreads, the rot sets in, and soon enough they're laid out on a stretcher, begging for evacuation. You tell yourself you won't let it get that far, even as your body tells you it already has. Mourning doesn't bring relief, it just brings another round of obligations. Your body already feels drained before you've even begun to move, but hunger gnaws its way in anyway. Not a sharp hunger, not the kind that has you craving something specific, just the dull, hollow emptiness that makes you aware of every grumble in your stomach. You think about food, and you know it won't be anything close to satisfying. The first thing you reach for is the can of C-rations. They come in small, olive-drab tins, stamped with faded letters, packed months ago, maybe years. The can opener on your dog tag chain is your constant companion, more reliable than the rifle some days. You hook it on, twist, and hear the faint metallic crack as the lid gives way. The smell that comes out is faint but unmistakable, a mixture of canned grease, stale meat, and something metallic, like blood left too long in a pan. There are different varieties, but none of them are good. Maybe you get ham and eggs chopped, a pale, clumpy mixture that looks like it was scraped off a factory floor. Maybe it's beans with frankfurters, the beans mushy and metallic, the hot dog shriveled, slick with gelatin. Or maybe it's beef stew, which somehow manages to taste like wet cardboard no matter how long you heat it. You've heard rumours of rarer, better ones, but by the time they make it this far into the Delta, what's left is always the rejects. You try to heat it if you can. To a little stove, some heat tabs, maybe even just holding the can over a small fire. The fuel stinks, chemical and sharp, and the flame is barely enough to make the food lukewarm. The grease inside bubbles faintly, spattering on your hands if you're not careful. If you don't bother heating it, you just eat it cold, the fat congealed into lumps that slide across your tongue and stick to the roof of your mouth. Either way, it isn't pleasant. It isn't meant to be pleasant. It's just calories, and you shovel them in because you have to. The biscuits that come with the ration are hard enough to crack teeth. They're thick, dry, flavourless blocks that you have to soak in water or coffee just to chew. They crumble into dust in your mouth, sticking to your teeth, scratching at your gums. You choke them down with gulps of bitter liquid, because if you don't, they sit in your throat like gravel. Sometimes there's a can of fruit cocktail, syrupy and cloying, with cubes of something that might be pear or might be nothing at all. It's the only part anyone looks forward to, and even that tastes faintly of tin. The coffee comes in little packets of instant powder, the kind that never dissolves completely. You rip one open, dump it into your canteen cup, and add water that's been treated with iodine. The result is a bitter chemical brew that smells faintly of medicine and tastes like scorched dirt. You sip it anyway, because the warmth is the closest thing to comfort you'll get this morning. The grit of undissolved powder crunches between your teeth, leaving a black smear across your tongue. Some men add sugar, or powdered creamer if they have it, but those packets run out fast, and before long it's just black sludge every morning. Sometimes the rations are swapped for local food, rice bought or bartered from villagers, cooked quickly in battered pots over smoky fires. The grains stick together, clumps of starch with a faint, sour smell from being stored too long. It's filling, but not fresh, and often carries a taste of the storage sack, of mildew, of whatever bugs burrowed in before it was cooked. You pick out the husks and chew slowly, wishing for flavour that never comes. If you're lucky, someone adds dried fish, salty and pungent, the kind that leaves your fingers smelling for hours. If you're unlucky, it's just plain rice, and not nearly enough of it. Breakfast isn't a meal so much as a chore. You eat quickly, crouched in the mud, or perched on an ammo crate, trying to get it down before the heat rises and the flies swarm. The flies come anyway, landing on the rim of your canteen cup, crawling across the edge of your food, buzzing at your ears. You wave them away, but they circle back instantly, drawn to the smell of grease and sugar. You learn to eat fast, to shovel it down before too many insects settle in. There are moments when you think about home, about real breakfasts, eggs frying in a pan, bacon crisping, toast hot from the oven. The thought makes your mouth water, but it also makes the food in your hand taste worse. You push the memory aside and focus on what you have, on what keeps you moving. Food here isn't about pleasure, it's about survival. Every bite carries the faint tang of metal. It doesn't matter if it's beans, ham or fruit. It all tastes faintly of the can it came from. A dull reminder that it's been sitting on a shelf longer than you've been here. Sometimes the cans bulge slightly, a warning sign you try to ignore, because it's all you've got. You pop it open anyway, eat it anyway, and pray the cramps in your stomach later are just from the usual bad water, not from food poisoning. Cigarettes come with the ration too, 4 to a pack, tucked into cardboard with faded brand names. Lucky Strike, Chesterfield, sometimes brands you've never seen before. They're stale, brittle, tasting of paper and ash, but they're currency as much as comfort. Some men smoke them immediately, lighting up before the food is even gone. Others save them, trading for something better, a chocolate bar, an extra can of fruit, a favour down the line. The smoke drifts into the damp air, mixing with the diesel and the jungle rot, another layer in the constant haze. When you're done, you crush the cans flat, wipe your hands on your trousers, and pack everything away. The grease clings to your fingers, no matter how much you rub. The smell sticks, another reminder you'll carry with you all day. Your stomach feels heavy, not satisfied but weighted down like you swallowed a lump of metal. Within an hour, the hunger will be back. A dull ache that never goes away, no matter how much you eat. The ritual repeats every morning. Rip open a can, choke down the contents, sip bitter coffee, smoke if you have it, Then shoulder your gear and move out. There's no variety, no relief, just the same cycle of bland, greasy calories day after day. You don't eat to enjoy. You eat to keep standing, to keep walking, to keep fighting. And as you sit there, swatting flies, swallowing another mouthful of congealed rations, you realise that this is just the start of the day. The real work hasn't even begun. After the ration cans are flattened and the bitter coffee sludge is gone, it's time to pull yourself together, though there's nothing crisp or clean about it. Getting dressed here isn't really about preparing for the day. It's about strapping yourself into another layer of discomfort, wrapping yourself in damp misery that never lets up. Your clothes aren't waiting for you neatly folded. They're draped over branches, hanging limply from lines, or stuffed into the bottom of your pack. And no matter how carefully you hung them, no matter how much you try to protect them overnight, they're wet. You pick up your shirt, olive drab, heavy cotton that was once stiff and sturdy, but now clings like rags soaked in brine. The fabric smells of mildew, of sweat that never fully washed out, of smoke from the last fire you sat near. You shake it out, hoping maybe the breeze will do something, but it doesn't. You slide it over your head, and immediately it sticks to your shoulders, clammy against your back. The armpits are stiff with salt, crusted into ridges that scratch your skin as you move. The collar rubs raw against your neck, damp and gritty with dust. You tug at it, but it doesn't help. You're wearing the jungle now, and there's no escaping it. Your trousers are no better. They're heavy with moisture, the knees permanently stained brown from kneeling in mud, the seams fraying where constant wet has eaten through. You pull them on, and they cling tight around your thighs, plastering themselves to your skin until every movement feels like a reminder of yesterday's march. You can smell them as you tie the belt, a sour, earthy odour that never fades, only shifts with time. You think about fresh laundry, about clean cotton that smells faintly of soap, but that thought feels like it belongs to another world. Out here, clothes don't get clean, they just get dirtier at different speeds. Then come the socks. If you have a dry pair, it's a miracle, but miracles don't last long. You peel yesterday's off, stiff and rank, the fabric stained with blood from blisters and streaked with grime. You shake them out, watch flakes of dried mud and skin fall into the grass, and slip on the next pair. They're damp too, because everything is damp, but at least they're less stiff. The corpsman told you to change socks whenever you can, to keep your feet dry, but it's a lie everyone repeats because there's no alternative. Within an hour these will be soaked again, clinging to your feet, grinding mud into every crease. Still, you pull them on, and hope they'll hold long enough to keep the worst of the rot away. The boots are waiting, standard issue, black leather, worn soft from endless marches through rice paddies. The soles are caked with mud, the stitching fraying, the insides carrying the sour reek of mildew and sweat that seep deep into the leather. You push your feet inside, and the damp hit instantly, soaking into your socks, squeezing between your toes. The leather squeezes too, stiff in some spots, stretched thin in others, cutting into your heels until the skin peels. You lace them up tight, knowing they'll rub raw spots anyway. Each knot feels like you're binding yourself to another day of blisters, trench foot, and endless slogging. Your fatigue cap is no different. The brim is warped from rain, the crown stained with sweat rings, the fabric as stiff with mildew. You tug it on anyway, shading your eyes from the rising sun. hoping it will at least keep the sweat out of your eyes for a little while. It won't. Nothing does. The smell that rises from you once you're fully dressed is almost overwhelming. Sweat, mildew, mud, leather, and smoke all layered together, radiating off your body in waves. It clings to your skin, your hair, your gear. A constant reminder that the jungle is eating you alive, one layer at a time. You don't notice it as much anymore, but when you catch a fresh whiff, it hits you hard, sour and heavy, sticking in the back of your throat. Your body reacts instantly to the layers. Within minutes, you're sweating again, sweat rolling down your back, soaking into the fabric that's already wet. Your shirt clings tighter, your trousers chafe at the thighs, your socks squelch inside your boots. You shift, adjust, tug at the fabric, but nothing helps. The damp is part of you now, like a second skin you can't peel off. Around you, the others are going through the same ritual. Shirts clinging, boots laced, faces grim. No one complains, because there's nothing to say. Everyone smells the same, feels the same. Everyone is trapped in the same damp uniform, carrying the same mildew with them wherever they go. The only difference is how long it takes before the blisters tear open again, before the rash spreads, before the boots give out completely. You check your pockets, the small canvas pouches sewn into the fatigues. They're stiff with dried mud, the flaps warped from rain. Inside, everything smells faintly of mould. Matches, maps, notebooks. All of it damp, all of it carrying the same sour edge. You tuck things back in, knowing they'll only get wetter as the day goes on. The uniform was supposed to protect you, but out here it feels like another enemy. The fabric rubs until your skin burns. The boots eat away at your feet. The cap drips sweat into your eyes. You pull it all on anyway, because not wearing it isn't an option. This is what stands between you and the jungle, and even if it feels like it's rotting you from the outside in, you cling to it because there's nothing else. When you stand up, fully dressed, the weight of it all presses down. Damp fabric, heavy boots, mildew in every seam. You shift your pack onto your shoulders, feeling the straps dig into the already tender spots, and for a moment you pause. You take a breath, trying to ignore the stink rising from your own body, the wet cling of fabric against your skin, the dull ache in your feet before you've even taken a step. And then you start to move, because the day isn't waiting. The clothes are only the first layer. Once you've dragged the damp shirt over your back, laced up boots that already cut into your heels, and swallowed the stink of mildew that clings to you like another skin, the real load begins. You reach for the helmet first, that steel pot that's supposed to be protection, but feels more like a curse. It's heavy even before you put it on, edges rough with dents and scratches from being dropped, kicked, scraped against trees. The liner inside is stiff, cracked with sweat and age, smelling like old leather mixed with hair and grime. You pull it down over your head, and instantly the world feels smaller. Your ears catch the muffled clink of metal. Your forehead takes the weight, and the strap presses into your chin. The rim narrows your vision, cutting the jungle into a circle that never seems wide enough. It's supposed to save your skull, but most days it just makes your neck ache. Next comes the rifle. It isn't optional. You sleep with it next to your hammock. You piss with it slung over your shoulder. You eat with it across your lap. It never leaves your sight, because if it does, you may not survive the day. The metal is cold in the morning, slick with condensation, and you wipe it down with a rag that's already filthy. The barrel smells faintly of burnt powder, oil, and the mildew that seeps into everything. You run your hand down the stock, the wood rough where the varnish wore off months ago, and sling it across your chest. The strap digs into your shoulder instantly. The weight settles against your ribs. You shift it, but there's no comfortable way to carry it. You've tried them all. After hours, the ache just moves from one place to another. You check the magazines. Each one is a small brick of metal and rounds, heavy enough that just 3 or 4 change the weight of your belt. You jam them into pouches already swollen with mud, the flaps stiff with dried filth. You pat them, making sure they're secure, because the thought of needing one and finding it gone is worse than the ache of carrying it. Every step you take today will be with these slamming against your hips, bruising bone, slapping against skin, dragging you down. The pack is next. It always feels heavier than you remember. Canvas, stiff and sagging, straps that cut into your shoulders like dull knives. You haul it up, swing it onto your back, and the full burden crashes down. Inside is everything you need to survive, and everything that makes surviving harder. Extra socks, already damp. Rations, the cans dense as rocks. Ammunition, more weight stacked on top of the weight you're already carrying. A poncho, folded into a slick bundle that smells of mould. A blanket that never dried out after the last rain. Maybe a spare shirt if you were lucky enough to grab one, but it's as wet as the one you're wearing. There are grenades too, each one small but dense, packed with the promise of destruction. They clank softly against each other in their clips, heavy enough that you always feel them dragging on your chest. You shift them carefully, not because you think they'll go off, but because you hate the way they swing, the way they remind you that every step you take is with explosives strapped inches from your heart. You strap on your web gear, canvas belts and suspenders designed to spread the load, but they only add more straps cutting into you. The canteens hang from them, sloshing faintly with treated water that already tastes like iodine. Each one pulls at your side, bouncing with every step. You add the entrenching tool, a folding shovel with edges rusting from damp, strapped to the back like an anchor. It digs into your spine when you sit, bangs against your hips when you walk. More you'll curse it all day, but you'll need it the moment you stop, when you're told to dig in and carve another foxhole out of the mud. Then there's the radio, if it's your turn to carry it. A giant pack of metal and wires, heavier than anything else, the kind of weight that makes your knees buckle when you lift it. The straps cut so deep into your shoulders they leave red grooves that don't fade even after you take it off. The handset dangles at your chest, wrapped in cords stiff with grime. It hisses with static, crackles with voices, never fully quiet. You hate it, but you guard it like your life depends on it, because it does. The radio makes you a target and a lifeline at the same time. Every man carries something extra. A belt of ammo for the machine gunner, boxes of mortar rounds, claymores, trip flares, bandoliers slung across shoulders until they cut like whips. The corpseman hauls his bag of medical gear, heavier than anyone else's pack, crammed with bandages, morphine, bottles of pills. He staggers under it, but he doesn't complain, because everyone knows it's the only thing standing between them and death. By the time you've strapped it all on, you're loaded down like a pack mule. The weight presses into your shoulders, your hips, your spine. Your body bends under it, your boots sink deeper into the mud, your breath comes shorter. You try to straighten up, but the straps pull you forward, bending you into the jungle whether you like it or not. Every movement is slower, every step heavier. You haven't even started walking yet, but already your muscles ache, your joints throb. You shift the rifle from shoulder to shoulder, but it doesn't matter. The helmet presses down no matter which way you tilt your head. The pack drags at your spine no matter how you adjust it. The gear doesn't feel like something you're carrying anymore. It feels like part of you, like the jungle grafted another body onto yours. One made of metal and canvas and straps that never stop cutting. You sweat harder under it all. The layers trap the heat. The straps rub salt into your skin until it burns. The pack sticks to your back, wet with sweat within minutes. You feel the trickle roll down your spine, soaking into the waistband of your trousers, dripping into the small of your back, where it pools and itches. You shift again, but there's no relief. The gear doesn't let you breathe. It just smothers you, slowly, steadily, all day long. Around you, the others grunt and curse under their breath as they strap on their own loads. No one looks comfortable. No one moves easily. Everyone stoops, shoulders bent, backs curved under the weight. You all look the same. Helmets bobbing, packs swaying, rifles digging into ribs, straps cutting into flesh. The jungle swallows you in silence. The only sound the clink and creak of gear shifting against bodies. This is your morning ritual, not just getting dressed, but strapping on the burden that will define every step you take until the sun goes down. You carry food, water, weapons and tools, but mostly you carry weight. It never feels lighter, no matter how many days pass. It only grows heavier as your body breaks down, as your muscles wear thin, as your mind starts to sag under the same load. You stand there, swaying slightly under the weight, helmet pressing into your skull, rifle strap biting into your shoulder, pack dragging at your spine. The day hasn't even begun, and already you feel crushed. The first step into the paddies always feels heavier than it should. You lift your boot, shift your pack, grip your rifle, and drop it down into the mud with a wet sucking sound that tells you this isn't ground in the way you're used to it. It isn't solid. It isn't stable. It's a swamp pretending to be farmland, a patchwork of water and muck that swallows your feet whole. You pull the other leg forward and it sinks deeper, and within 3 steps you already know the rest of the day will be nothing but a slow motion fight with the earth itself. The mud grabs you like it wants to keep you. Every stride pulls at your ankles, tugging your boots back down as if the land has decided you don't belong here. You lift one leg free and the suction makes a pop, spraying flecks of brown water up your trousers, across your hands, sometimes onto your face. It splatters into your mouth if you breathe wrong, and the taste is a bitter mixture of silt, algae, and fertilizer that lingers even after you spit. You take another step, and another, and each one feels like wading through glue that doesn't end. The paddies stretch out forever, rectangles of water separated by raised ridges of dirt that look stable until you put weight on them. Then they crumble under your boots, sliding into the water, leaving you half submerged, scrambling to keep your balance while the pack drags you down. The water is only shin deep in some spots, waist deep in others, and you never know which until you step into it. Sometimes your whole body plunges down, rifle raised desperately above your head, while the rest of you soaks through again in water that smells like manure and rotting vegetation. The plants brush against your legs as you move, thin rice stalks bending and snapping against your trousers. They scratch at your skin through the damp fabric, slicing small cuts you won't even notice until the sweat stings later. The water itself hides everything. Sharp rocks, broken sticks, jagged metal from a long ago skirmish, all waiting under the surface. Every step is a gamble. Sometimes you land clean. Sometimes your ankle twists. Sometimes you slam into something hard enough to leave a bruise that lasts for weeks. Then come the leeches. You don't see them at first. They're too small, too quick, waiting under the water or clinging to the stalks. But after a few minutes, you feel the first one, a faint tug at your ankle or your calf. You glance down, and there it is, already swollen, bloated with your blood. You reach down, fingers slick with mud, and pry it off, the mouth still clinging until it tears free, leaving behind a wound that bleeds freely into the paddy. You curse under your breath, slap it onto the water, and it wriggles away, ready to attach itself to the next unlucky leg. The others are already on you by then. Dozens, sometimes more, wriggling under your socks, crawling higher up your legs, slipping beneath your belt line if you're not careful. You stop every so often to strip them off, flicking them away in disgust, watching the blood run down your shins until it mixes with the mud. The weight of your pack makes it worse. Every step sinks you deeper. Every movement pulls you further down. The straps dig into your shoulders. The helmet slides forward on your head. The rifle cuts into your hands as you keep it raised above the waterline. You lean forward, bent under the combined weight of gear and earth, your spine curving like a bow, your knees trembling with the effort of pulling free step after step. The heat rises off the water in waves, steaming your body from below as the sun beats down from above. Sweat pours into your eyes, stinging until you blink against the salt. Your shirt is plastered to your back, soaked through not just with water, but with your own body's attempt to keep up. The damp air doesn't let it evaporate. It just clings to you, pooling in the small of your back, dripping down your thighs, soaking your socks until they squelch with every movement. You swat at mosquitoes buzzing in your ears, but it's pointless. They're everywhere, landing on your neck, your arms, even your face when your hands are too busy gripping the rifle to swat them away. The path isn't clear. There are no signs, no markers, just endless paddies, each one looking the same as the last. You follow the man ahead of you, stepping where he steps, trusting that he knows the way, trusting that the ground won't collapse under him before it collapses under you. Sometimes the ridges between paddies are lined with grass. Sometimes they're bare mud, slick as oil. You tread carefully, boots slipping, arms out to steady yourself, pack swaying like it wants to pull you down. A single wrong step, and you're in up to your waist, scrambling, clawing for a grip, dragging yourself back onto the ridge, while the others pull you up with curses and laughter. That isn't really laughter. The villagers move differently. You see them sometimes, carrying baskets, balancing along the narrow ridges with bare feet, gliding across the mud as if it isn't even there. Their steps are sure, light, practiced from a lifetime in the paddies. They barely leave prints. You, on the other hand, crash through like a beast, boots sinking deep, gear clattering, every movement heavy and clumsy. The difference gnaws at you. The land knows who belongs here, and it isn't you. Your body starts to ache almost immediately. The muscles in your thighs burn with every lift. Your calves cramp from pulling against the suction. Your lower back screams from carrying the pack. Blisters swell on your feet, pressed raw by socks that rub against wet skin. You ignore it as best you can, because there's nothing else to do. The march doesn't stop because you're tired. It doesn't stop because your legs are shaking. It doesn't stop at all. The smell never leaves you. The paddies reek of fertilizer, of manure spread thick across the water, of rot from plants that sank and never surfaced again. You wade through it, and it clings to you, soaking into your clothes, coating your boots, splashing onto your hands and face. You breathe it in with every step, and soon you can't tell if the stench is coming from the field or from your own body. Time stretches out on the march. Minutes feel like hours. You look up, expecting to see the end of the field, only to realise you're staring at another, and another beyond that. Each one identical. Each one waiting to swallow you whole. The sun climbs higher, the heat presses harder, and still you keep moving, boots dragging, rifle cutting into your palms, pack bending your spine. You don't talk. No one talks. The only sounds are the squelch of boots, the splash of water, the grunt of effort as each man hauls himself through. Now and then you stumble. Your foot catches on a submerged root, your knee buckles, and you lurch forward. The pack drags you down, pulls you face first into the muck. You push up with your hands, but they sink too, and for a moment you feel trapped, stuck in mud that grips tighter the more you struggle. Panic flares, sharp and sudden, until someone grabs your arm and yanks you upright. You cough, spit water, wipe mud from your face, and keep moving. There's no pause, no time to collect yourself. Just step after step after step. The march doesn't break you all at once. It wears you down piece by piece. First your feet blister, then your knees ache, then your shoulders go numb under the straps, then your lungs start to burn. By the time the field finally ends, you're hunched and staggering, every part of your body screaming at once. And yet you know this isn't the last paddy, not even close. There are more ahead, stretching out like an endless punishment, and each one will take a little more from you. And when you climb onto the ridge, dripping, bleeding, covered in mud and sweat, you don't get relief. You just look out over the next stretch of green water and know it's waiting for you, ready to drag you down all over again. The march doesn't just wear you down because of the mud under your boots. The air itself joins in, pressing against you like another enemy. Heat here isn't the kind you know from home, where the sun beats down dry and sharp. This is wet heat, heavy heat, the kind that fills your lungs until breathing feels like drinking. Every inhale drags steam into your chest, thick and suffocating, and every exhale feels wasted because the air doesn't clear. It just hangs around your face, damp and unmoving, reminding you that the Delta doesn't care how much you gasp for relief. You start sweating almost instantly. Not the thin sheen you wipe away on a hot day back home. This is constant, relentless pouring. Beads forming on your forehead, rolling down your temples, soaking your shirt until it clings tighter than the mud ever could. Within minutes, the fabric plastered across your chest is darker, heavier, dripping onto your trousers. The salt stings when it reaches your eyes, blinding you with a burn that makes you rub with dirty fingers, grinding grit into the corners until they water and blur. Your helmet traps the heat, the strap damp with sweat, the liner slick against your scalp. You shift it, tilt it back, but it only slides forward again, pressing harder into your skin. Your pack is alive with it. The canvas grows hot on your back, rubbing raw spots where the straps dig in. Sweat soaks into the fabric until it smells like mildew mixed with the grease of your skin. Every step grinds it deeper until your spine feels flayed under the weight. You try to adjust it, shifting the straps, but it doesn't matter. The damp is inside now, soaked into the padding, dripping down into your waistband until your trousers sag with the weight of it. Your boots squelch with every movement, but not from the mud anymore. Now it's sweat seeping through your socks, soaking them from the inside out. Your feet slide against the wet cloth, blisters opening wider, skin peeling away. The corpsman told you to change socks often, to keep them dry, but you laugh at that advice now. Dry doesn't exist here. The moment you put them on, they're wet. The moment you march, they're ruined. The only thing changing them does is remind you how briefly the illusion lasts, before the sweat reclaims everything. The air tastes like metal and salt. You lick your lips, but the sweat has already streaked them, leaving a brine that makes your tongue curl. You spit, but the taste stays, rolling back into your mouth with every drop that slides down your face. You swallow because you have to, and the water in your canteen doesn't help. It's warm, tepid, metallic with iodine, and it only makes you sweat harder the moment it hits your stomach. The jungle amplifies it. The canopy traps the air, blocks whatever faint breeze might exist. Sunlight filters through in thick, golden shafts, and where it lands, it burns. You feel it sear your shoulders, your neck, even through the damp fabric. Steam rises from the mud as the sun climbs higher, turning the paddies into boiling pots that you wade through slowly, like an animal caught in tar. The humidity grows thicker with every degree, until the air itself feels like a wet towel pressed over your mouth. Your skin reacts first. The sweat never leaves, so it festers in every crease. Under your arms, raw patches burn with every swing of your rifle. Around your waist, the waistband rubs until it digs grooves into your hips, welts rising where fabric and flesh grind together. Between your thighs, the damp cloth grates against skin until it splits into sores that ooze with every step. The corpsman might hand you a tin of powder, chalky stuff you smear, onto yourself in the vain hope of relief, but the sweat washes it away almost immediately, leaving clumps of paste stuck to raw flesh. Rashes spread in streaks, red and angry, climbing across your stomach, your groin, your back. Some itch until you can't stop scratching, tearing them open with filthy nails. Others just burn steadily, a reminder that your skin is breaking down one layer at a time. You catch sight of other men with the same welts, the same sores, the same crusted scabs forming in lines along their thighs. No one says much about it, because everyone knows there's no cure here. You just endure it, day after day, until your body decides whether to heal or to fester. Then comes the prickling. The heat brings it on suddenly, a sharp, stabbing itch that spreads across your chest and arms like fire ants under your skin. Heat rash, the corpsman calls it, but names don't matter when you're clawing at yourself through your shirt, desperate for a second of relief. The more you scratch, the worse it gets, until your skin feels like it's glowing from the inside out, a furnace you can't escape. The only cure is cooling down, and out here that never happens. Your head pounds under the weight of it. Sweat drips into your ears, soaking the liner of your helmet until it squelches when you shift. The heat bakes your brain, pounding in your skull like a drum. You feel dizzy sometimes, light-headed, your vision swimming as you march. The corpsman warns about heat stroke, about watching for men who stumble or slur their words, but you all look the same now, glassy-eyed, staggering, sweat pouring off in sheets. You can't tell who's close to collapsing and who's just enduring the same as everyone else. The air doesn't just punish you physically, it wears down your mind. Each step feels longer, heavier, slower, until time itself stretches. You think you've been marching an hour, maybe 2, but when you check the sky, the sun has barely shifted. You wipe your brow again, but the sweat is back instantly, dripping down into your eyes, your mouth, your collar. You start to wonder if the heat is endless, if the day ever moves forward, or if you're stuck in this swamp forever, trapped under steam that never lifts. Your hands don't escape either. The rifle grows slick with sweat, the grip slippery no matter how tight you hold it. You wipe your palms on your trousers, but they're soaked too, and the moment you grasp the stock again, it slides against your skin. The metal grows hot in the sun, burning against your palm, until you shift it from one hand to the other, back and forth, never finding comfort. Your fingers prune from constant damp, the tips soft and raw, splitting open until every trigger pull feels like rubbing sandpaper across open wounds. Breathing turns into a chore. Each inhale fills you with wet air that sticks in your lungs. You cough sometimes, short and sharp, trying to clear it, but the damp only thickens. The smell of mildew rides every breath, mixing with the tang of smoke drifting from some far-off fire, the diesel fumes rolling up from the river, the rot of vegetation beneath your boots. You breathe it all in whether you want to or not, and soon it feels like your chest itself is moulding, lungs turning to sponges soaked in swamp water. The insects thrive in it. Mosquitoes buzz in clouds, undeterred by the sweat running down your skin. They bite through your shirt, through your trousers, leaving welts that rise instantly, itching until you can't help but scratch. Flies swarm your face, drawn to the salt, the wetness, the faint stink of decay that clings to every man in the line. You swat, wave, curse, but they never leave, circling back each time, relentless as the heat itself. You think about shade, about stepping out of the sun for a moment, but even under the canopy it doesn't matter. The air is thicker there, trapped beneath the leaves, steaming like a sauna. Sweat pools faster, dripping into your boots, soaking your gear until it feels twice as heavy. You lean against a tree for a second, but the bark is slick with moss, alive with insects crawling across your arm. You push off again, muttering, shifting the rifle back into place, stepping back into the paddy. The worst part is the knowledge that it won't end with the day. The sun will sink, the air will cool slightly, but the damp never leaves. You'll peel off your shirt tonight, and it will still be wet. You'll hang it up, and in the morning it will be wetter than when you left it. Your skin will still itch. Your feet will still squelch. Your helmet will still trap the heat against your scalp. Out here, sweat is constant, humidity eternal, and dryness just a word you used to know. You keep moving, one foot pulling out of the mud, one boot slamming down into water that splashes warm against your shins. Your body aches, your skin burns, your lungs choke, and still you march, because the heat isn't a reason to stop. It's just another weight to carry, another punishment to endure, another part of the delta that refuses to let you go. The sweat on your skin doesn't just make you miserable, it paints you like a target. The bugs smell it, taste it, swarm to it, and they don't give you a second of peace. They are everywhere, all the time, and they don't stop. Out here the insects aren't just a nuisance. They're another enemy, smaller but just as determined to wear you down, one bite at a time. The mosquitoes are first. You hear them before you feel them. A high whine that builds around your ears, impossible to ignore. The sound cuts through every other noise, the squelch of boots, the splash of paddies, the hum of engines in the distance, until it's the only thing you can think about. Then they land, dozens at once, tiny needles stabbing into your neck, your hands, your arms. You slap one away, smear its blood across your skin, but another has already taken its place. They don't care about repellent. The bug juice you rubbed on this morning was useless within an hour, washed away by sweat, leaving only a faint chemical stink that mixes with the swamp. You could bathe in the stuff and it wouldn't matter. They'd still find a way through. They bite through your fatigues, leaving welts even where you thought the fabric would protect you. They go for ankles, thighs, even the small of your back where the sweat pools and the cloth sticks tight. You scratch until your skin tears, leaving streaks of blood that trickle down into your boots. It only makes the bites worse. The itching doesn't fade. It spreads, crawls across your body like fire, until you can't tell where one welt ends and another begins. At night, it's worse. The moment the sun drops, the air fills with them, thick clouds that descend on you the second you stop moving. You wrap yourself in a poncho, tuck your face into your shirt, but they find gaps anyway, slipping inside, whining in your ears until you thrash and curse in the dark. You kill them by the dozen, your hands sticky with blood, not just your own, but the blood they stole from everyone in the squad. They leave stains on your shirt, on your hammock, on your skin, proof that you'll never be rid of them. Malaria, dengue, Japanese encephalitis. The names float around in your head every time you slap one away. The corpseman hands out pills, bitter chalky tablets you swallow with a grimace. But you know it's luck more than medicine that decides who gets sick and who doesn't. Then there are the leeches. The paddies crawl with them, the streams wriggle with them, the damp jungle floor hides them in every puddle. You can't avoid them. The moment you step into water, they latch on, tiny threads at first, invisible until they swell with your blood. You feel the tug, reach down, and find one bloated and pulsing, its body slick and rubbery under your fingers. You peel it off, but its mouth clings stubbornly, tearing your skin when it finally lets go. Blood gushes out, running down your leg, soaking into your sock. The bleeding doesn't stop quickly. The leeches leave behind a constant trickle, staining your trousers, attracting more flies. Some crawl higher. They wriggle up your legs, past your knees, searching for softer flesh. You strip them off in disgust, hurl them away, but there are always more. You can't walk 10 steps without another attaching itself. You start checking yourself constantly, pulling at your socks, patting your thighs, feeling for the soft, unnatural bulge of one feeding on you. Some men burn them off with cigarettes, the glowing tip pressed to the writhing body until it shrivels and drops away. Others just rip them off, cursing as the blood flows. Either way, you can't stop them. They're always there, waiting for the next chance to dig in. The fire ants come when you least expect it. You're slogging through the paddies, or sitting down for a moment's rest when suddenly your legs are on fire. You look down, and your boots are crawling with them, tiny red bodies swarming over the leather, up your trousers, onto your skin. They bite in unison, a coordinated assault that feels like needles jabbing deep, burning hot. You leap up, swatting at them, slapping your legs, tearing at your clothes, but they move fast, climbing higher, biting as they go. Each bite swells into a blister, white-tipped and throbbing, itching long after the ants are gone. Sometimes you stumble right into their nests without realising it, a mound hidden under the grass or mud. The whole colony rises up at once, hundreds of them pouring over your boots, your gear, your pack. You thrash, you curse, you claw at yourself. But there's no escaping them until you run clear, stripping them off as they cling stubbornly to your skin. Your legs are covered in welts by the end, some so swollen you can barely bend your knees. The jungle adds more to the list. Spiders as big as your hand drop from branches, scuttling across your gear, their hairy legs brushing your skin before they vanish into the undergrowth. Centipedes as long as your forearm wriggle across the mud, their venomous bite leaving men feverish and shaking. Scorpions hide in boots if you leave them out overnight. Stingers poised to remind you that nothing here is safe, not even the little things. Flies are constant. They swarm your face, dive for your eyes, crawl into the corners of your mouth. They land on open sores, buzzing greedily as they sip at the blood and pus. You slap them away, but they come back immediately, dozens more filling the gap. They breed in the latrines, in the garbage pits, in the bodies that don't get buried fast enough. They rise in clouds when you pass, a black cloud that clings to you for miles before settling back into the muck. Termites chew through wood, even the stocks of rifles if you're not careful. Ants strip away food in minutes, tearing through rations with mechanical efficiency. Even the bees and wasps seem meaner here, swarming in aggressive packs, stinging over and over until your skin balloons into red, throbbing welts. Every bug out here has a way of reminding you that the Delta doesn't want you. They bite, they sting, they suck, they burrow. They carry disease in their saliva, leave infections in their wounds, spread rot where they feed. The corpsman can smear ointment, sprinkle powder, wrap gauze, but it doesn't stop the cycle. You wake up covered in bites. You march through swarms all day. You fall asleep listening to the whine of mosquitoes circling your ears. The itching never ends. The burning never fades. The bleeding never quite clots. At first, you tell yourself you can handle it. They're just bugs, just small things. But after days, weeks, months, the truth sets in. They aren't small, not here. They're constant, overwhelming, a presence you can't ignore. They wear you down as much as the mud, the heat, the weight of your gear. They make every step harder, every breath sharper, every moment of rest impossible. Out here, the bugs don't just want to bother you. They want to eat you alive, one drop at a time. You can swat mosquitoes until your arms are sore, peel leeches until your legs are raw, curse ants until your throat goes hoarse, but none of it matters if you can't drink. The Delta doesn't just soak your clothes and rot your skin. It seeps into your body, whether you like it or not, because eventually thirst wins. Out here, thirst comes quicker than you expect. The sweat never stops, pouring out of you in streams, dripping from your chin, soaking your shirt, pooling in your boots. Every drop that leaves has to be replaced, but the water you have is never enough, and the water around you is never safe. The canteen hangs heavy at your side, a dented aluminum shell wrapped in a stained canvas cover. It clinks against your hip with each step, the slosh inside taunting you as your mouth dries out. You reach for it more often than you mean to, unscrewing the black cap, tilting it back, swallowing greedily. The first mouthful is warm, tepid, carrying the tang of metal. It slides down your throat like a gulp of bath water, stale and heavy, and yet your body still begs for more. You drink until the canteen is lighter, clip it back to your belt, and instantly regret it. There won't be a refill for hours, maybe not until evening, and you already know one canteen won't last. The water never tastes clean. Even when it's been treated, even when it's been filtered through iodine, it carries the faint stink of chemicals mixed with whatever swamp it came from. You unscrew the lid, drop in the little brown tablet, and watch it fizz weakly, dissolving into nothing. Then you shake the canteen, sloshing it around, waiting half an hour like the corpsman told you. 30 minutes of dry tongue, 30 minutes of lips cracked and bleeding, 30 minutes of staring at the canteen like a starving man stares at bread. And when you finally drink, it doesn't taste like water anymore. It tastes like rust mixed with bleach, a bitter tang that coats your mouth and clings to your stomach. You choke it down anyway, because there isn't a choice. The iodine burns your throat. It leaves your stomach queasy, rolling with nausea that builds until you feel like puking. Some men do, doubling over in the mud, vomiting up the very water that was supposed to save them. Others force it down, grimacing through every swallow, their eyes watering as they choke it back. You learn quickly that water isn't relief here. It's another burden, another fight, something you endure rather than enjoy. And sometimes you don't even get iodine. Sometimes you dip your helmet into a stream, scoop up a cloudy mess of brown and green, and gulp it down because you're desperate. The surface looks calm, but you know it's teeming with life. Parasites, bacteria, invisible things wriggling in every drop. You drink them anyway, and within hours your gut reminds you what you've done. The cramps start first, sharp and sudden, twisting your insides into knots. Sweat pours down your face as your stomach clenches, your body folding around the pain. Then comes the flood, violent and unstoppable, sending you stumbling off into the bush to crouch miserably while everything inside you empties out. Dysentery doesn't ask permission. It takes hold fast, leaving you doubled over, shivering with fever even in the choking heat. Your trousers are soaked through before you can strip them off, and shame is the least of your concerns. The dehydration sets in almost instantly, your body draining itself faster than you can replace it. You drink more to make up for the loss, but the water only fuels the cycle, running straight through you until you're weak, trembling, barely able to stand. The corpsman might give you salt tablets, maybe a few pills, but there's no magic fix. You just have to survive it, one cramp at a time, while still hauling the same pack, still marching the same miles, still sweating out whatever little fluid you manage to keep down. Even when dysentery doesn't get you, the water plays its tricks. The iodine leaves your teeth stained, your mouth dry even after drinking. The metal taste seeps into everything, until even your rations taste like rust. Your stomach churns with each swallow, bloated from the chemicals, sloshing as you move. You start rationing your gulps, telling yourself one sip every hour, no more, no matter how thirsty you feel. It doesn't work. The heat steals more from you than you can control, leaving your tongue swollen, your lips cracked, your thoughts foggy. You sneak another gulp, and another, until the canteen is empty long before you need it to be. When refills come, they're no better. The water trucks rumble into camp, and the tanks inside smell of diesel, oil sloshing on the surface. You fill your canteen anyway, watching the grease shimmer in the sunlight, and tell yourself it's fine. You drop in another iodine tablet, shake it, wait, drink, and hope. Or maybe you refill from a stream, crouching low, your rifle balanced across your knees, while you scoop the brown water through a rag to strain out the leaves. It doesn't stop the parasites, but it makes you feel better for a moment. You swallow, wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, and keep moving. The thirst becomes a constant companion. It never leaves you, not really. Even when your belly sloshes with water, your throat still feels dry. Even when you force yourself to stop drinking, your tongue still scrapes against the roof of your mouth. You dream of cold glasses filled with ice, of water so clear you can see straight through, of fountains you could lean under and let spill across your face. But dreams don't help, and in the Delta, nothing is clear. Nothing is cold, nothing is safe. Sometimes you think you can trick yourself. You swirl the water in your mouth, spit it out. Tell yourself the taste alone will ease the dryness. But it doesn't. The craving gnaws at you until you give in, until the canteen is lighter, until you know you'll regret it later. You try not to think about the fact that the enemy drinks the same water, that the villagers wade into the same streams, that the land itself poisons you while sustaining them. You try not to think about how many men have already gone down with fevers, with cramps, with infections that started in the same murky puddles you scoop from every day. Water is supposed to keep you alive. Here it's just another gamble. Every sip is a choice between thirst and sickness, between a dry mouth and a body racked with cramps, between living one more day and paying for it later. You lift the canteen anyway, tilt it back, swallow the warm metallic liquid, and tell yourself you'll deal with whatever comes. Out here, you don't really have another option. The land wants to wear you down, but so do the people. You march through villages scattered along the paddies, clusters of thatched huts raised on stilts, smoke curling lazily from cook fires, children chasing each other through the mud. On the surface it looks peaceful. Chickens scatter at your boots, water buffalo plod along the paths, old men squat in the shade, watching silently. It could almost be any rural place, if not for the rifles slung over every shoulder in your squad, the wary glances traded back and forth, the tension that never lifts. Out here, every smile might be hiding something. Every quiet nod might be a mask. You don't know who's harmless and who's waiting for nightfall. The villagers keep their distance. Women clutch children to their hips, pulling them back into doorways as you pass. They don't speak to you, not unless they're pressed, and when they do, the words come out clipped, forced, filtered through interpreters whose tones you don't trust. You hear "no VC here" again and again, the same phrase repeated with the same flat expression, and it never sounds convincing. The Mekong Delta is a maze of allegiances, some sworn to the south, some loyal to the north, some pretending to lean one way while feeding the other. You can't untangle it, not in a few minutes of passing through. You hand out candy to the kids sometimes, hard sweets pulled from a pocket, but even that doesn't sit right. Their eyes dart nervously toward the tree line as they take it, as if someone is watching, as if there will be punishment later for accepting a foreigner's gift. Some don't take anything at all, turning away with a blank look that's far too old for their age. You can't tell if it's fear, hatred, or just weariness, and in the end, it doesn't matter. The result is the same: distance. The elders don't meet your gaze. They sit cross-legged in front of their huts, staring past you, eyes unreadable. You wonder what they've already seen. Battles rolling through, homes burned, sons dragged away by one side or the other. To them, you're just another passing army, another uniform, another set of boots to tramp through their fields. They've lived here for generations. You'll be gone in a year, maybe less. The land belongs to them, and you're just an intruder. Suspicion becomes routine. Every villager is a potential informant. Every fisherman might be moving supplies. Every farmer might be planting more than rice. You watch them bend over their fields, conical hats shielding their faces, and you wonder what's hidden beneath the soil. A tripwire? A cache of weapons? A tunnel entrance covered by a mat of grass? You can't stop wondering, because the moment you stop, that's when it will be real. The line between civilian and fighter blurs until it doesn't exist. A woman in black pyjamas carries a basket on her shoulder. Maybe it's rice, maybe it's grenades. A boy leads a water buffalo along the path. Maybe he's just a kid. Maybe he's spotting for an ambush. A man casts a net into the river. Maybe it's fish he's after. Maybe he's signalling someone across the water. You don't know, and you never will. The corpsman says it will drive you mad if you think about it too much, but you can't help it. Every face you pass feels like a test you'll fail eventually. You see the fear in your own squad too. The way they grip their rifles tighter when they pass a group of villagers. The way they glance at windows, at baskets, at shadows. Jokes get thrown around, sharp and bitter, but they don't hide the tension. You've heard stories. Men walking into a village only to be gunned down by a farmer who dropped his hoe and pulled out a hidden rifle. Convoys blown apart by bombs buried under the same paths. Villagers walked on all day without issue. At night, shots fired from the tree line by someone who smiled at you that very morning. The line is thin, and it shifts under your feet constantly. Even when nothing happens, the waiting grinds you down. You stand guard in a village, sweating under the sun, while children peek from doorways, while women stir pots without looking at you. Hours pass with no word, no movement. Nothing but the weight of stares you can't quite meet. You drink from your canteen, the iodine stinging your tongue, and you wonder what they're thinking. Are they praying you'll leave, or praying you'll die? Are they plotting to help you, or plotting to bury you? You'll never know. When you patrol past the huts at night, lanterns glow faintly inside, shadows moving across the walls. You imagine conversations you can't hear, instructions being whispered, messages being passed. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's everything. You lie in your hammock later, staring into the dark, wondering if the hand that ladled rice earlier will be the same one to pull a trigger before dawn. It eats at your sense of safety. You start to distrust everything. The calm of the village, the smile of a child, the stillness of a farmer in his field. You want to believe in innocence, but the Delta doesn't allow it. Not here. Not when every rice paddy might hide a mine, every hut might cover a tunnel. Every villager might be more than they seem. You carry that suspicion with you. Just another weight added to the pack. Just another burden that never lifts. And when you march out again, leaving behind the cluster of huts, the buffalo, the chickens, the children. The feeling follows. You keep glancing back over your shoulder, half expecting a shot, half expecting an explosion. When it doesn't come, you don't relax. You just file it away as one more borrowed moment. One more step deeper into a place where the enemy is never clear, where the line between friend and foe doesn't exist, and where trust is something you learn to bury along with everything else. You don't get to settle after passing through a village. You don't get to shake the stairs or forget the unease. You just keep moving, deeper into the paddies, deeper into the tree lines, deeper into the waiting. Patrols don't follow a rhythm you can predict. Sometimes you slog for hours under the heat, your boots sucking at the mud. Other times you stop after 100 yards, kneeling in silence while the lieutenant whispers with the point man. Either way it's the same, waiting, moving, waiting again, never knowing what will come next. The waiting stretches longer than the walking. You crouch in the brush, sweat dripping from your nose, rifle balanced across your knees, listening to the jungle hum. Bugs whine in your ears, birds shriek in the canopy, leaves rustle faintly with movement you can't see. You hold your breath at every sound, tense until your shoulders ache, eyes darting across the tree line for shapes that never appear. Sometimes it's nothing, just the wind, just a monkey, just the jungle shifting around you. But you can't know that in the moment, and so you sit frozen, lungs tight, finger curled over the trigger, waiting for something that may never come. The monotony wears at you first. Hours pass without a word, just the occasional hiss of a hand signal moving down the line. Your legs cramp, your back stiffens, your neck burns under the helmet strap. You shift slightly, but every movement feels too loud, so you settle back into stillness. The bugs take advantage, landing freely, biting into your skin without resistance. Sweat soaks your fatigues until they cling like another layer of skin. You swallow the bitter taste of iodine water, shift the rifle in your hands, and try not to think about how many more hours you'll spend crouched like this. But the monotony is only half the weight. The other half is the waiting for it to break. You know the stillness won't last forever. You know at any second the brush might erupt, the crack of rifles shattering the silence, the ground exploding beneath your boots. You don't know when it will happen, and that ignorance eats at you. Every second feels stretched, your nerves strung so tight they could snap. You think you hear movement where there is none, think you see shadows where only leaves sway. The fear doesn't stay sharp. It dulls into a constant hum, a low-level buzz under your skin, the kind that makes you jump at every sudden sound, the kind that makes you sweat even when you've been still for hours. Then it comes without warning. A single shot rips through the quiet, and instantly the world explodes. The squad dives for cover, rifles snapping to shoulders, fingers tightening on triggers. Muzzle flashes burst from the tree line. The air fills with the whip crack of bullets tearing past your ears. You slam yourself into the mud, cheek pressed flat, heart pounding in your throat. The smell of gunpowder mixes with the swamp, sharp and choking. Shouts ring out, men yelling over each other, the radio squawking in panicked bursts. You fire back into the trees, not even sure what you're aiming at. The jungle swallows everything. Smoke, shadows, muzzle flashes. And you shoot blind, hoping to hit something, anything, to keep the fear at bay. Your ears ring with the chaos, The blasts of rifles, the dull thump of grenades, the sharp hiss of incoming rounds, snapping branches inches from your face. Time collapses. You don't know if it's been seconds or minutes. You just keep pulling the trigger. Keep slamming fresh magazines into the rifle. Keep pressing yourself deeper into the mud as the firefight swirls around you. And then, just as suddenly, it's gone. The shots stop, the shouts fade, the jungle hum creeps back in. You lift your head slowly, ears still ringing, chest heaving with every breath. Smoke drifts lazily between the trees. Someone coughs, someone else groans. You glance down the line, counting heads, your stomach twisting with the ones that don't move. The lieutenant signals, whispers sharp and clipped, sending men to check the tree line. But there's no one there now. The enemy has vanished, melted back into the jungle, leaving behind nothing but shell casings and silence. You wait again, crouched low, listening for footsteps, for whispers, for any sign they're still there. Nothing. Just bugs. Just birds. Just the endless drone of the Delta. You want to collapse, to let the fear drain out of you, but there's no time. Orders come down the line. Move. Always move. Don't stay in one place too long. So you push yourself up, sling your rifle, wipe the mud from your face, and fall back into formation. The march resumes, as if nothing happened, though your hands still shake and your ears still ring. The sudden shifts wear you down more than the firefights themselves. One moment you're crouched in silence, the next you're fighting for your life, and then it's gone. Back to silence. Back to waiting. Your body never adjusts. Your nerves stay frayed. Your muscles sore from jolting awake at every crack. Even when nothing happens, you feel like it will. You glance at every bush, every tree line, every hut in the distance, and wait for the muzzle flash you know is coming. The noise lingers too. Even when the firefight ends, the jungle feels louder. The buzzing of flies seems sharper, the call of birds shriller, the rustle of leaves suspicious. Your own gear clinks too much. Your boots squelch too loudly. Your breathing sounds like a beacon. And you try to stay quiet. Try to move carefully. But every step feels like it echoes. You know they hear it. You know someone out there is listening, waiting, watching. Night patrols are worse. You can't see more than a few feet ahead, the jungle a wall of black pressing in. You stumble through undergrowth, boots sinking silently into mud, rifle raised but useless in the dark. Every crack of a branch sounds like a rifle, every rustle like footsteps. You whisper to the man ahead, but the words are swallowed instantly, gone in the thick air. The world narrows to the man's shadow in front of you. The weight of the rifle in your hands, the pounding of your own heartbeat. When gunfire erupts in the dark, it's chaos multiplied. Muzzle flashes blind you, brief bursts of light that leave after images burned into your eyes. You drop to the ground, firing at shadows, at movement, at nothing at all. You smell smoke, sweat, blood, cordite and swamp all at once, choking on the mixture as you reload in the dark. Men shout over each other, voices panicked and disoriented, trying to make sense of the black. Then silence again, crushing, smothering, leaving you gasping as your hands tremble in the mud. And so it repeats. Wait, move, wait again. Hours of monotony broken by seconds of terror, then back to hours of monotony. It grinds down your nerves, strips away your patience, leaves you in a constant state of unease. You never relax, not really. Even in your hammock, even with your boots off, even when the jungle is quiet, you feel like you're still out there, crouched low, rifle raised, waiting for the crack that will send you diving into the mud again. Patrol duty doesn't end when the day does. It follows you, pressing into your chest at night, echoing in your ears, filling your dreams. You dream of footsteps that never arrive, of muzzle flashes that never fade, of waiting that never ends. And when you wake up, it's time to do it all again, because the Delta doesn't care if your nerves are shot, doesn't care if you can't tell silence from danger anymore. It only cares that you keep moving, keep waiting, keep carrying the weight of endless patrols until you can't tell the difference between the quiet that saves you and the quiet that kills you. The patrol never really ends, and neither does the fear. But in the Delta, it isn't just gunfire you wait for. It's the ground itself. Every step feels like a gamble, every path a dare, because what lies under your boots can kill you just as quickly as anything fired from a tree line. Mines, traps, wires. The jungle is seeded with them, and they're always waiting. The fear of them starts the moment you wake up. You swing your legs out of the hammock, set your boots down in the mud, and hesitate. It's a ridiculous thought at first. Who would bury something in a camp where you spent the night? But it doesn't matter. You still pause, staring at the ground, half convinced today's first step could blow your legs away. And when you do finally push forward, that unease stays with you, mile after mile, step after step, until walking feels like dragging yourself across a minefield, because in truth, it is. You've seen what they can do. A man in your squad stepped on one once. The sound was small, a sharp metallic click, almost lost in the noise of the jungle, but everyone froze. The explosion followed half a breath later, a thunderclap that shook the earth, dirt and shrapnel blasting skyward. When it cleared, the man was on the ground, screaming, his legs torn apart, boots shredded into nothing. You smelled the blood before you saw it, hot and metallic, mixing with the swamp stink. Medics rushed in, morphine needles plunged, tourniquets snapped tight, but the damage was already done. You can't unsee it. The image sticks with you, vivid as the scar it left in the ground. And that's just the mines. The booby traps are worse, because they feel personal. Like someone spent hours building a device designed just for you. A tripwire stretched low across a path, thin enough you don't notice it until your shin brushes against it. Maybe it's tied to a grenade buried under a tin can, pin pulled, spoon ready to fly. Maybe it's hooked to bamboo stakes, sharpened to needles, swung down from the trees with the weight of a log behind them. Jay, you never know until it's too late. The punji pits are common. You step off the path for a second, boots sinking into the soft mud, and suddenly the ground collapses. You drop into a hole hidden under leaves, sharp bamboo spikes driven deep into the bottom. They aren't just sharpened, they're smeared with filth, excrement, rotting meat, anything to infect the wounds they cause. Even a shallow puncture festers, swelling, oozing pus, turning red and hot. Thus, infection spreads fast in the Delta. A man can go from limping to delirious with fever in days, all because of one spike hidden under a mat of grass you learn to scan constantly. Eyes dart down at the path, back up at the tree line, down again at the mud, up again at the huts in the distance. It wears you out faster than the heat. Your brain feels stretched, pulled in too many directions, trying to see everything at once. Every stick looks like a tripwire, every patch of leaves like a covered pit, every shadow like a stake waiting to swing. Sometimes you're right, Sometimes you're wrong, but you never know which until you've already stepped. The worst is when nothing happens for days. You start to relax, just a little. The tension eases, the scanning slows, and then it hits. Someone up front stumbles, a muffled snap echoes, and the jungle erupts. Maybe it's a grenade wired to a doorframe. Maybe it's a mine buried shallow under the mud. Maybe it's a crude trap, but deadly all the same. The blast echoes in your chest. The shrapnel cuts through flesh. The screaming starts again. You hit the ground, heart pounding, ears ringing, crawling forward to see who's left standing. The smell of burned flesh mixes with the swamp, acrid and unforgettable. And once again, you remind yourself there's no such thing as safe ground here. Sometimes it's not explosions at all. Sometimes it's the sudden sting of sharpened bamboo whips snapping across a path, tearing into skin, leaving deep bloody slashes that fill with dirt and bugs. Sometimes it's weighted logs, swinging down from vines to smash into ribs, crushing a man before he knows what hit him. Sometimes it's wires strung across trails at neck height, meant to catch you as you march, to slice or snap your spine before you ever know it's there. You step heavier than you want to, boots pressing deeper into the mud, because in some way it feels safer, as if a solid step will save you from a trap designed to spring at the lightest touch. But it doesn't really matter. The ground doesn't care how careful you are. It's been waiting, and it will wait until you make a mistake. You start to notice how your body changes. Your shoulders hunch tighter. Your legs stiffen with every step. Your stomach coils into knots that never loosen. You don't even realise how shallow your breathing gets, like every inhale risks setting off something you can't see. Your nerves are raw, rubbed down by the constant threat. The sound of a branch snapping under your boot makes your chest seize. The rustle of leaves brushed by your sleeve makes you flinch. Every sound in the jungle becomes a warning you can't ignore. And the traps aren't just on the ground. They're in huts, in abandoned camps, in places where you think you'll finally find a moment of rest. You open a door and a grenade rolls free, fuse hissing. You flip over a rice jar and find a nest of spikes inside, waiting for a hand to plunge in. You move aside a bundle of grass and hear the faint metallic tick of a wire pulled tight. Every object feels suspect. Every abandoned tool feels like bait. Even when you find nothing, the suspicion never leaves you. Men talk about the traps as if they're alive, as if the jungle itself is conspiring against you. And in a way it is. The people who live here know every path, every tree, every stream. They know where to hide wires, where to bury cans, where to set pits. You don't. You stumble through as an outsider, heavy boots crushing into soil that isn't yours, and the ground punishes you for it. The radio hisses, calling for engineers to sweep paths, but they can't cover everything. Too much ground, too many trails, too many ways to hide a trap. They find some, they miss others. You keep walking anyway, because there isn't another option. The mission doesn't stop for suspicion. You move forward, boots pressing into soil you don't trust, eyes scanning leaves you know are hiding something. Even when you bed down at night, the fear lingers. You lie in your hammock, staring at the ground below, imagining spikes hidden just beneath the mud, waiting for someone to stumble in the dark. You imagine wires stretched between trees, set to snap across the camp at the first sign of movement. Sleep doesn't come easily. When it does, it's shallow, broken by jolts off imagined blasts, phantom clicks under your feet. And the worst part is knowing that none of it will stop. The traps are everywhere, set by hands that know this land better than you ever will. You'll keep stepping into mud you don't trust. Keep brushing aside branches that might be wired. Keep stumbling into pits that will rot your flesh from the inside. The ground here is alive, and it doesn't want you. Every step you take is a negotiation, every path a gamble, every movement one heartbeat away from being your last. The traps don't just end with blood in the mud. They leave wounds that don't close, infections that don't heal, fevers that burn through bodies until nothing is left but a shadow. Out here, medicine isn't the white walls of a hospital or the sterile smell of alcohol wipes. It's mud, sweat and blood, with a corpsman hunched over you in the open, his hands shaking, his supplies already too thin. You don't think about doctors, or clean beds, or recovery wards. You think about morphine syrettes stabbed into thighs, tourniquets pulled tight, bandages soaked through in minutes. The corpsman is never far. He's part of the squad, trudging through the same mud, carrying the same weight, only his burden is heavier in its own way. His pack isn't just rations and ammo, it's gauze, morphine, iodine, rolls of tape, scalpels wrapped in wax paper, scissors dulled from overuse. He's your hospital, your pharmacy, your last chance. When someone steps on a mine or triggers a trap, he's the one who sprints forward, dropping to his knees in the blood and filth. He doesn't get to hesitate. He has seconds to decide what can be saved and what can't. You've seen it up close. A man goes down screaming, his leg mangled by shrapnel, boot split open like paper. The corpsman is already there, shoving you aside, unwrapping a tourniquet with shaking hands. He cinches it high on the thigh, twisting it until the screaming changes pitch. Blood flow choked off, the stump below turning dark, morphine next, jabbed straight into the muscle, the little plastic tube left hanging from the fabric of the trousers so everyone knows the man's already dosed. Bandages unrolled, slapped down on the wound, pressed hard until the bleeding slows. It doesn't matter that the bandages are already filthy, pulled from a pocket damp with sweat and mildew. It's all there is. The bleeding slows. Sometimes it stops. Sometimes it doesn't. The corpsman's voice stays steady even when his hands don't. He tells the man he'll be fine, he'll make it, the medevac is coming. Everyone knows it's a lie. The chopper won't be here for half an hour, maybe longer. Half an hour is a lifetime when your blood is pooling in the mud. Some make it, some don't. You watch the corpsman work, sweat dripping off his nose, his own uniform soaked and filthy, and you know he's all that stands between your buddy and a body bag. Infections don't need explosions. The Delta grows them on its own. A scratch from bamboo, a blister rubbed raw in wet boots, a spike of pungy wood through a calf. All of it can kill you as surely as a bullet. The wounds fester in hours, swelling, turning red, leaking pus that soaks through socks and bandages alike. The corpsman dabs iodine, sprinkles sulphur powder, mutters under his breath that it won't be enough. You chew your malaria pills at night, bit of chalk that sticks to your teeth. But even those don't save everyone. Some men wake with fevers anyway, their skin burning, their eyes glassy. They shiver even in the stifling heat, teeth rattling while sweat pours off them. Malaria takes them out of the fight just as surely as shrapnel. And then there's dysentery, trench foot, jungle rot, feet white and swollen, peeling open like wet paper from weeks in damp socks. Skin turning raw between the toes, crawling with fungus. The corpsman scrapes it, powders it, wraps it, but it never really heals. Men limp along on ruined feet, the pain etched into their faces with every step. Diarrhea dehydrates them until they can barely stand, eyes sunken, lips cracked. The corpseman mixes salt and water, forces it down their throats, but half the time it comes straight back up. Medicine isn't prevention here. It's triage. It's slowing the collapse, not stopping it. When wounds are bad enough, there's only one solution, and it's brutal. Amputation doesn't happen in a clean room with surgical lights. It happens in the mud, under a poncho stretched between bamboo poles. The corpsman's hands steadying a saw while men hold down the patient. Morphine dulls the pain, but never erases it. The screaming cuts through the jungle, louder than gunfire, a sound that makes every man freeze with dread. The saw grinds through bone, the smell of blood and marrow thick in the air. The corpsman working as fast as his shaking arms allow. When it's over, what's left is wrapped in gauze, already soaked through, tied tight, and prayed over until the medevac arrives. Sometimes the man lives. Sometimes the fever claims him before the helicopter can touch down. You don't look at medicine the same way after you see that. You don't think of hospitals or recovery or sterile tools. You think of a corpsman crouched in the dirt, scissors between his teeth, hands shaking as he tries to stitch with thread that's already fraying. You think of a feverish buddy mumbling nonsense, lips cracked, eyes unfocused, while salt water dribbles down his chin. You think of the taste of chloroquine tablets, bitter and dry, stuck in your throat while you force yourself to swallow them anyway. You think of how thin the line is, how fragile, how temporary, between being alive and being gone. The corpsmen carry more weight than their packs. They carry the weight of every man who collapses, everyone who doesn't make it, every scream they can't quiet, every wound they can't close. You see it in their eyes when they think no one's looking, the exhaustion, the quiet despair. They don't have the luxury of breaking down. They stitch, they tape, they wrap, they inject, and they move on. And you keep moving with them because you have no choice. At night, you lie in your hammock, staring into the dark, and you wonder what would happen if it were you, if the mine was yours, if the infection was yours, if the fever picked you out of the line. You imagine the corpsman crouched over your body, muttering that you'll be fine while his hands fight to keep your blood from pouring out. You picture the saw, the gauze, the morphine, the poncho tent. You swallow your pills with rusty water, press your socks against your chest to dry, and hope you'll never find out. But deep down, you know you will. Out here, it isn't a question of if, it's when. The Delta chews at every man, some with bullets, some with fever, some with bamboo spikes that fester into rot. Medicine can buy you time. It can't buy you safety. And every time you watch the corpsman work, hunched in the mud with his dwindling supplies, you understand how fragile you really are, and how thin the thread is that keeps you upright another day. The corpsman's hands never stop moving in the daylight, but at night it's your own hands that won't stay still. The jungle doesn't sleep when the sun drops, it just changes shape. What was already dangerous in daylight turns into something worse, because now you can't see it. Shadows swallow everything, the tree line becomes a wall of black, and the paths you walked all day vanish as if they were never there. When darkness settles across the Mekong Delta, you feel smaller, weaker, pressed down by the weight of a world you can't control. The night watch starts with a ritual. Positions are picked, rifles checked, magazines slammed into place, grenades set within reach. Cigarettes are lit with hands cupped tight, the glow shielded so it won't carry. You find your spot, crouched low or leaning against a tree, and then you wait. Your ears take over where your eyes fail. The jungle is loud, louder than you expect. Crickets scream, frogs croak, leaves rustle with the weight of unseen animals. Every sound is sharper, more insistent, magnified by the dark. You try to tell yourself it's just the usual, just the swamp breathing, but that doesn't quiet the nerves crawling over your skin. Your eyes play tricks on you. You stare into the brush and shapes shift, shadows twisting into figures that aren't there. A branch sways and for a heartbeat you're certain it's a man moving. A patch of darker black becomes a rifle barrel. You blink, shake your head, glance again, and it's gone. But the suspicion lingers. The jungle is alive, and in the dark you can't separate imagination from threat. The fear of movement grips you hardest. A twig snaps somewhere beyond the tree line, and your heart seizes. You strain to listen, body frozen, every muscle tense. Maybe it's just an animal. Maybe it's not. You whisper to the man next to you, barely moving your lips, and he shrugs. He doesn't know either. That's the point. You never know. The silence after sound is worse than the sound itself. It stretches, tightens, until you think something has to happen, and then nothing does. You breathe again, shallow, eyes darting, waiting for the next noise. Some nights pass without incident. No ambushes, no gunfire, no sudden blasts. Just hours of crouching in the dirt, sweat cooling on your skin, muscles cramping from stillness. You don't relax though. You can't. The absence of attack doesn't feel like safety. It feels like a delay. The waiting gnaws at you, more exhausting than fighting, because at least during a firefight the fear has somewhere to go. On watch, it just piles up, settling heavier on your shoulders with each passing hour. The mosquitoes don't stop just because it's dark. They swarm your neck, your wrists, the exposed skin of your face. You slap at them instinctively, then curse under your breath because the sound might carry. You stop moving, let them drink, let them itch, let them swell into lumps that will sting for days, because silence is worth more than comfort. Every decision becomes like that. Pain or safety, noise or quiet, comfort or survival. You always choose survival. The jungle speaks in layers. The high whine of insects, the guttural calls of frogs, the steady drone of unseen things shifting in the water. You tell yourself these are normal, that they mean life is moving as it should. It's the sudden breaks that matter, the abrupt silences when the frogs stop croaking, when the insects go quiet, when the jungle holds its breath. Those silences are warnings. Sometimes they mean nothing. Sometimes they mean everything. You clutch your rifle tighter, cheek pressed against the stock, eyes searching the dark for a flash of movement. Your breathing feels too loud. Your heartbeat thunders in your ears, and you wonder if they can hear it too. If someone is already out there, crouched low, watching you from a dozen feet away. You imagine the muzzle of a rifle aimed at your chest, finger tightening on the trigger, just waiting for you to shift, to stand, to breathe wrong. The thought makes your stomach twist, but you can't shake it. You sit frozen, locked in place, listening to a world that never quiets. Sleep doesn't come for anyone. Even the men not on watch toss and turn in their hammocks, the night sounds needling them awake. They murmur in their sleep, grunt, shift, then fall back into uneasy silence. You envy them, but not enough to want their dreams. Nightmares come easy out here. Sometimes it's better to be awake, staring into the black, than to wake screaming into it. You notice how time moves differently at night. Minutes stretch like hours, hours like days. You check your watch and swear it's broken, that the hands haven't moved, that you've been sitting in the same posture for eternity. When at last it does move, it feels like a trick, like the night will never actually end. The sky never seems to lighten until suddenly it does. A faint grey creeping into the canopy. Shapes resolving from shadows, the black thinning into dull green. Sunrise feels like salvation, even though daylight brings its own dangers. The night has passed, and you're still breathing. That's enough. But the memory of it doesn't leave you. The phantom sounds echo in your ears even after the sun is up. A twig snapping, a rustle in the brush. A whisper you could swear came from just behind you. You shake your head, splash iodine-tainted water across your face, but the tension lingers. The fear you carry at night doesn't dissolve with the light. It just hides deeper, waiting for darkness to call it back again. And every day you know it will return. The sun will drop, the black will spread, and you'll crouch in the mud again with a rifle in your lap, staring into shadows that never blink. You'll hear every sound magnified, every silence sharpened, every second stretched thin. The night watch will keep pulling you forward, one sleepless hour at a time, until you don't know which is worse, the terror of the dark or the exhaustion of never escaping it. You tell yourself you'll get a few hours when your turn on watch is over, but you already know it won't be real rest. Sleep out here isn't sleep in the way you remember it, back in a bed with sheets and a door you could lock. In the Mekong Delta, sleep is something thin, fragile, easily torn apart by noise or by your own mind dragging you awake before your body is ready. You climb into your hammock, boots still on, because you can't afford the time to pull them off. Rifle propped close where you can grab it without thinking. The canvas creaks beneath you as you shift, trying to find a spot where the ropes don't bite into your shoulders, where the fabric doesn't sag too deep. You never find it. The hammock is always damp, mildew thick in the fibres, and it smells faintly of rot no matter how often you try to air it out. You pull the netting over yourself to keep the mosquitoes at bay, but they still find ways in. You feel them whining near your ears, landing on your cheeks, biting through the thin fabric of your sleeves. You slap half-heartedly, then give up, because fighting them only keeps you awake longer. You close your eyes, but the night doesn't quiet. The jungle is still talking, croaking, humming, buzzing, as if it refuses to let you forget where you are. The distant splash of water, the rustle of leaves shifting under some unseen weight, the occasional pop of gunfire far off in the distance, they all bleed into your half-dreaming mind. You hover in a place between waking and sleeping, neither fully here nor fully gone, and in that limbo, the worst things surface. Dreams come fast when exhaustion finally drags you under. They aren't gentle, they're jagged, violent, stitched together from memories and fears. You see the blast of a mine you didn't step on, the sight of a buddy torn apart, the screaming that didn't stop. You feel the ground give way beneath you, falling into spikes, legs pierced and burning. You hear the gunfire erupt from the tree line, your rifle jamming in your hands while figures melt in and out of the shadows. The dreams never stay steady. They break apart, reform, shift into something new before you can make sense of them. And always there's a noise, gunfire, shouting, the slap of rotor blades. All of it louder in dreams than it ever was in reality. Sometimes you don't even know you've fallen asleep. One moment you're staring into the dark, the next you're in the middle of a firefight that isn't real. The sudden shift jolts you awake, heart racing, hands scrambling for the rifle before you remember where you are. Sweat pours down your face, cold in the night air, and you glance around, wild-eyed, certain the jungle is about to erupt. But nothing happens. Just the men around you, some shifting in their own hammocks, some snoring softly, some whispering under their breath. The world didn't end, not yet, but your pulse still pounds like it did. When Shellfire does come, it doesn't matter whether you are awake or dreaming. It tears straight through both. The distant thud of mortars launching, the whistling arc overhead, and then the explosions slam into the ground with bone-shaking force. Dirt rains down, hammocks sway violently, men scramble half awake for cover they can't really find. You throw yourself to the ground, cheek pressed into the mud, hands over your helmet as the blasts roll closer. The noise is unbearable, a mix of thunder and metal shrieking, ripping through the night, until you can't tell one explosion from the next. When it stops, you crawl back to your hammock, shaking, filthy, ears ringing, and you know you won't sleep again that night. Your body is too tight, your mind too raw. But still you try, because there's no other choice. The exhaustion eats at you until your eyes force themselves shut, and then the cycle repeats. Shallow dreams, sudden wake-ups, the constant pull of fear. Even on nights without Shellfire, your own body betrays you. Your legs twitch from hours of marching, muscles still coiled and restless even when you're off your feet. Your back throbs from the weight of the pack. Your skin itches from bites and rashes, forcing you to scratch until you're raw. You toss in the hammock, tangle yourself in the netting, curse under your breath, and start the process over again. Sleep doesn't arrive when you want it to. It ambushes you, sneaking up in short bursts, leaving you groggy when you need to be alert, abandoning you when you beg for more. The exhaustion never fully leaves. You carry it through every day, a permanent fog behind your eyes, a heaviness in your limbs. Even when you've technically slept, it never feels like you did. Your head jerks forward on patrol, eyelids fluttering, body begging for rest that never comes. Men nod off standing against trees, rifles slipping in their hands, only to jolt awake seconds later. It isn't rest, it's survival, and survival doesn't give you dreams worth having. You stop trusting your own senses. Half asleep, half awake, you think you hear whispers in the brush. You see movement where there is none. You raise your rifle at shadows, finger tightening, only to realise it's nothing. The line between reality and dream blurs, and it costs you. Some men fire anyway, shots cracking into the dark at ghosts. Others freeze when the real attack comes, convinced it's just another dream. Too late to act until bullets are already cutting through the air. Every morning you wake up feeling worse than when you lay down. Your eyes are red, your hands tremble, your thoughts slow to form. But the jungle doesn't pause for fatigue. You shoulder your pack, chew on whatever passes for breakfast, and stumble back into the mud. You tell yourself you'll sleep better the next night, but you won't, not here. The Delta doesn't let you rest. It only lets you collapse in pieces, never whole, never complete, just enough to stand up and march again. And so, night after night, you repeat the same routine. Hammock, netting, mosquitoes, shallow dreams, sudden wake-ups. Sometimes it's noise in the distance. Sometimes it's your own mind inventing it. Sometimes it's Shellfire ripping through camp, shaking you awake harder than any nightmare. Sleep isn't something you find. It's something that ambushes you, leaves you weaker than before, and abandons you before dawn. And every time the sun rises, you drag yourself up from the mud, knowing you'll do it all again. Because out here, sleep isn't rest. It's another kind of war. One you lose every single night. By the time darkness settles again, your stomach has already been gnawing at you for hours. The rice paddies and marches drain you faster than you realise, sweat pouring out of you until your clothes stick like wet rags. And even though you don't move with speed, every step pulls something from you. Hunger builds, dull and nagging, until finally it's time to eat. But out here, food isn't comfort. It isn't warmth or home. It's another part of the grind. A necessity you choke down in the dark, with one hand on your rifle. The cans are heavy, always heavy, rattling at the bottom of your pack, no matter how carefully you try to balance the load. Metal tins that clang when you shift, sweating in the heat until the labels peel and the insides smell faintly of rust when you peel them open. They call them rations, but there's nothing about them that feels like meals. Brown beans that congeal into paste, meat packed in gelatin that slides out in one trembling piece, fruit cocktail that tastes like syrup and aluminum more than anything else. You stab at it with the same spoon you've been carrying since you landed, and you force each mouthful down, chewing fast so you don't have to taste it longer than necessary. Sometimes you don't even bother heating them. Fires are too dangerous, the smoke too visible, the light too much of a beacon. You eat the rations cold, grease clinging to your fingers, the fat hardened into clumps that stick to your teeth. The coffee comes in little packets, powder you swirl into canteen water until it dissolves into a thin, bitter sludge. You drink it anyway, because you need the kick. But it doesn't taste like coffee. It tastes like mud. Everything does out here. And then there are the rats. They're not shy, not in the Delta. They know when the can's open, when scraps hit the ground, and they swarm in before you've even swallowed your first bite. Big ones, thick with muscle, eyes glinting in the low light, their tails dragging through the mud. You kick at them, throw stones, wave your rifle, but they come back, waiting just beyond the reach of your boots. You can hear them chewing at night, gnawing through packs, tearing at wrappers, dragging away what little you manage to solve for later. Some men set traps, crude things with sticks and string, but the rats always seem to outsmart them. Other men don't bother. They shoot the rats instead, quick bursts that echo through the camp, meat splattering in the dark. Then they skin them, roast them, chew on the stringy flesh, because at least it's different from the cans. At least it tastes like something that once breathed. The smell of food at night hangs heavy. Grease lingers in the air, mixing with sweat and mildew, clinging to your clothes. It draws insects in swarms, buzzing around your head, crawling on your hands as you eat. You wave them off, smack at them, curse under your breath, but they don't care. They're as hungry as you are. By the end, you're not sure if you've swallowed more flies than beans. Sometimes you get lucky. A resupply brings boxes of better rations, newer cans, crackers that haven't gone stale yet, packets of jam that actually taste like fruit. You tear into them with something like joy, if joy can survive out here, but it never lasts. By the next day, The good stuff is gone, the box is empty, and you're back to the same grey slabs of meat and beans. You learn not to savour too much, not to hope for more because disappointment feels heavier than hunger. The act of eating never feels separate from the war. You don't gather in comfort or share in laughter. You crouch low, balancing the can on your knee, shovel it in quick, eyes scanning the shadows because you know gunfire could rip through at any moment. You don't let your guard down, not even with a spoon halfway to your mouth. The sound of the jungle doesn't stop just because you're hungry. Crickets still scream, frogs still croak, branches still snap somewhere out in the black. Every noise makes you pause, spoon hovering, body tense. You chew slower, quieter, ears straining, ready to drop everything and grab your rifle if the silence shifts. The taste doesn't leave you when you're done. Cold grease sits on your tongue, coating your mouth, heavy in your stomach. You swallow again and again, trying to wash it down with iodine-tainted water, but it clings. You lie back in your hammock later, listening to the rats scurrying underfoot, and you can still taste it, thick and sour. The dreams that come aren't about food, not the kind you want, not plates or kitchens or warmth. They're about the same cans, the same grease, the same rats tearing into what little you have, and the cycle repeats every night. The same cans, the same fights with vermin, the same aftertaste of aluminum and fat. Hunger becomes routine, eating becomes ritual, and you stop thinking of food as anything other than fuel. You open the can, you shovel it down, you try not to gag, and you move on. There's no comfort in it, no break from the grind. Just another chore. Another reminder that everything out here is survival and nothing more. But still, you eat because you have to. Because without it, the marches are longer, the watch heavier, the fear sharper. Because even when the food is cold and greasy, even when it draws rats and roaches, even when it turns your stomach, it's the only thing keeping you upright. So you scrape the bottom of the can, lick the last of the grease from the spoon, shove it back into your pocket, and pretend for a moment that you're satisfied, even though you know you never really will be. You scrape the last of the grease from the spoon, shove the can aside, and wipe your hands on your trousers even though they're already filthy. The night presses in heavy, rats scurrying just beyond the edge of the light, and when you finally sling your pack over your shoulder again, the thought returns. It doesn't matter if you're full or starving, rested or shaking with exhaustion. The danger is still there. It's always there. In the Delta, it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't follow a schedule. It seeps into every hour, slips into every step, hides in every shadow. You never forget it, because the moment you do is the moment the jungle reminds you how quickly it can take everything away. The snipers are the first you think of. Somewhere out there, in the tree line or tucked into a hut, a single man with a rifle could be watching. You'll never see him until he's already fired. The first sign is usually the crack of the shot, a sound that echoes sharper than anything else, followed by the thud of the bullet punching into flesh. Sometimes it's the man walking ahead of you. Sometimes it's the one crouched beside you. Sometimes it's no one at all, because the shot missed. But the moment you hear it, you hit the dirt, mud splattering across your face, heart hammering as you scan the trees for a glint of metal that isn't there. The fear of snipers isn't about the kill. It's about the waiting. Every march, every patrol, every stop to rest, you feel the weight of eyes on you, even if there aren't any. You wonder if you're in the scope now, if a finger is tightening on a trigger while you scratch at a mosquito bite, or shift your pack higher on your shoulders. You wonder if the next sound you hear will be the crack that ends it. That thought never leaves, not when you're moving, not when you're still, not even when you're asleep. And then there are the ambushes. The jungle is built for them. Every tree and thicket a perfect wall of cover. Every bend in the path a chance for someone to wait just out of sight. You walk in single file, boots squelching in the mud, rifles raised, and the silence feels heavy. Too heavy. Then it breaks all at once. Gunfire erupts from the brush, bullets cutting through the air in snapping bursts, the squad scattering into the muck before you even have time to think. You slam yourself into the mud, chest heaving, rifle clutched tight, eyes darting for any sign of movement in the chaos. The air fills with the sound of men shouting, the sharps stutter of M16s answering the roar of AKs, grenades thumping as they arc into the brush. You can't see who you're shooting at. You never can. The jungle swallows them whole. The muzzle flashes gone before you can aim. You fire anyway, squeezing off bursts into the green, hoping to hit something, anything, while praying you won't feel the impact of lead tearing into your own body. When the firing stops, silence doesn't bring relief. It brings suspicion. Was it over? Or were they just pulling back? Waiting for you to stand up? Waiting for you to move into the kill zone? You lie still, cheek pressed to the mud, until the radio crackles with an order to push forward. Then you rise, shaking, caked in filth, eyes darting over the bodies sprawled across the ground. Sometimes they're yours. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes there's nothing. No bodies. No blood. As if the ambush was only ever a shadow of itself. Artillery is different. Artillery doesn't hide in the trees or whisper in the brush. Artillery comes from nowhere. One moment you're sitting in the mud, swatting at mosquitoes. The next the ground shakes beneath you, dirt erupting into the air as a shell slams down. The sound is deafening. A rolling thunder that shakes the bones in your chest, rattles your teeth, makes your ears ring until you can't hear your own voice. You don't see it coming, not ever. You just feel the shockwave tear through your body and hope you're not in the spot it lands. There's no pattern to it. Sometimes a single shell falls, cracking the earth open like an axe. Sometimes a whole barrage rains down, one after the other, the blasts merging into a constant roar that leaves the air hot and choking with smoke. You dive into whatever cover you can find. A ditch, a hole, the shallow depression left by a previous blast. And press yourself flat against the earth, praying the next one doesn't hit closer. Dirt sprays across your back, branches snap overhead, shrapnel whistles through the air. When it finally stops, the silence is worse than the noise. Your ears buzzing, your body trembling, your mind stuck in the expectation of the next hit. The danger doesn't stop when the blasts do. The shells tear the jungle apart, leave splintered trees, craters filled with water, mud churned into sucking pits. Moving through it afterward feels like wading through a graveyard, the smell of burned earth mixing with blood and smoke. You step carefully, boots sliding in the new mud, ears still ringing, waiting for the whistle of another shell. It's the unpredictability that eats at you most. You never know which day will bring the sniper, which hour will erupt into an ambush, which minute will be torn apart by artillery. You never know which path is safe, which tree line hides rifles, which stretch of sky carries shells. The uncertainty clings tighter than the sweat. tighter than the mud. It squeezes your chest until you can barely breathe, keeps your eyes darting, your body coiled, your mind raw. Some men get used to it, or at least they pretend to. They joke about it, laugh too loud, smoke cigarettes with shaky hands as if daring the next bullet to find them. Others grow quiet, locked inside themselves, eyes hollow, movements automatic. Most fall somewhere in between, walking forward because there's no other choice, ducking when the shots crack, diving when the blasts fall, standing up again because they're still alive, even if they don't know why. And through it all, you eat, you march, you sleep badly, you wake up, and you do it again. The food tastes like grease, the nights are full of whispers, the mornings heavy with dread. But none of it matters as much as the simple fact that danger is constant. Not sometimes, not occasionally, not only on the front lines, always. Every step, every breath, every heartbeat could be the one where it all ends. The war doesn't let you forget it. It doesn't give you rest. It doesn't care if you're ready. Out here the Delta decides, and it reminds you every single day with the crack of a sniper's shot, the chaos of an ambush, or the sudden roar of shells tearing the ground apart beneath your boots. The hours blur until you stop counting them. Sunrise doesn't feel like the beginning of anything, and sunset doesn't feel like relief. Time here doesn't move the way it does anywhere else. It drags and stutters, stretches and snaps, until what should be a single day feels like it has swallowed a lifetime whole. You wake soaked in sweat before the sun even clears the trees, and already you feel older, heavier, worn down. By the time the night watch comes again, you don't remember where the day began. It's all one long stretch of heat, fear, and mud that doesn't give you back what it takes. The Delta makes sure you never settle. Every hour brings another demand, another weight. You wake fighting mosquitoes and humidity, dressing clothes already wet, eat food that tastes of grease and metal, and march into mud that never ends. Each step feels the same, each ration the same, each night the same. But they don't blur into comfort. They grind into you, layer after layer, until the sameness itself feels like pressure. The minutes pile up into something heavier than hours. You think about home sometimes, but not in the way people imagine. Not warm dinners or open fields or quiet streets. You think of the simplest details, the weight of dry sheets, the silence of a bedroom, the way water runs clear from a tap. Out here those things feel imaginary, like they happened to someone else. The jungle is too thick, the air too wet, the mud too deep. Home is a different lifetime, one you don't belong to anymore. The Delta steals that from you, makes every memory feel distant, makes every hour here feel eternal. The days don't just drag because of the monotony, they drag because of the waiting. You never know when something will snap. A shot from the trees, an explosion underfoot, shellfire that comes without warning. The tension never fades. Even when nothing happens, your body stays clenched, your mind wound tight, your eyes darting to every sound. Minutes stretch longer when you're waiting for something that may or may not come. And out here, you're always waiting. Fatigue weighs heavier as time goes on. You walk like you're decades older, shoulders bent, knees aching, feet rotting in boots that will never dry. You speak less, not because you don't want to, but because words take energy you don't have. You stop noticing new sores, new rashes, new cuts. They all blend together into one slow decay. You watch the same happen to the men around you. They age in front of your eyes without ever leaving their 20s. Faces lined from exhaustion. Eyes sunken from lack of rest. The Delta doesn't let you keep your youth. It strips it out of you in pieces. Nights don't bring relief either. You lie in your hammock, swatting at rats, listening to insects scream, half dreaming of firefights that may never come. When the mortar fire does slam into camp, it's just more proof that even the hours meant for sleep belong to the Delta, not to you. Rest is another illusion. The days and nights merge into one continuous strain, and you lose track of which is which. Light and dark don't matter. Only the endless grind does. And then there are the moments when it all hits you at once. When you stop mid-step, boot stuck in mud, rifle slipping on your sweaty shoulder, and realise how long it feels since you started this day. Hours ago, maybe just after sunrise, you swore you couldn't go further. Yet somehow you did, and now it's midday, and you still can't see an end. By evening, your body is dragging, your mind fogged, and it feels like a month has passed since morning. When night falls, the exhaustion is so complete you can't believe it's still the same day. You feel like you've lived through years in one stretch of hours. And tomorrow it will start again, just as long, just as heavy, just as endless. There's no rhythm to hold on to. No schedule that feels reliable. Patrols, ambushes, resupplies, shellfire, they all scatter across the hours, breaking them apart until time itself loses shape. You don't measure days by the sun anymore. You measure them by how many times you felt certain you wouldn't survive. By how many times you've laid in the mud listening to your own heartbeat, waiting for it to stop. By how many times you've told yourself you can't keep going, only to stand up and do it anyway, because there is no other option. The Delta doesn't just drain your body, it steals your sense of time, your sense of self. It traps you in a cycle where every sunrise feels like the same one, every night watch the same endless black, every ration the same cold grease, every patrol the same mud. You don't move forward, you don't move backward. You just exist in the heavy stretch of a single day that never ends. And it's that weight, more than the bullets or the traps or the disease, that breaks men. Not knowing how many days are left. Not knowing if tomorrow will be different. Not knowing if the war will ever end, or if you'll just keep waking up here, soaked in sweat, boots sinking in mud, listening to the jungle whisper around you. The Delta has no mercy, no pause, no kindness. It doesn't matter who you are or where you came from. Once you're here, one day is enough to feel like a lifetime. And if you last more than that, the days pile up until you forget where one ends and the next begins. Out here, the Delta never ends. So that's where you find yourself. In the mud and the heat, the air thick with insects, the ground never dry, the danger never gone. You've walked through the Delta one step at a time, carrying the weight of gear, of fear, of hours that never seem to pass. Every sound, every smell, every taste is part of the same long day, stretched thin until you don't know where it begins or where it ends. The jungle doesn't care if you're ready. It keeps moving, keeps humming, keeps pressing against you. And all you can do is sit with it, breathing slow, listening to the low drone of insects and the distant rumble that may be thunder or maybe something else. The Delta doesn't tell you which. It just holds you there, caught in a place where time has no shape, where sleep never quite comes, and where survival feels like the only rhythm left. So as the night hums around you, and the damp air settles over your skin, you let your eyes close, just for a moment, The war fades to the background. The jungle becomes a steady blur of sound, and the weight of the day stretches out into silence. You don't know how long it will last, or what waits when the sun rises again. But for now, you drift, the delta still with you, endless, heavy, carrying you forward whether you want it to or not.